So what?
Trying to find the
What
right
are you selling now?
product. I'm not selling
How are
it's not
you?
brands of selling.
I don't know.
This
Yeah,
is
sorry,
what I
a couple
do
minutes
receive.
here.
I don't
Paid
sell.
one, so just trying to find
About-
the right
Turn
one,
it.
and then I'm
It's
stock
a
up on it.
So,
Yeah.
people watching so far. Sorry, just a couple minutes.
So it is doTERRA, but it's homeopathic.
I woke up
Oh, okay, so I'm
super
using
sick
it
today.
Yeah.
This
Right.
one is just
So we have something fun
And then
planned.
this is the
And how about you guys? About me.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so tune in for just a couple minutes.
So
I gotta call Daddy back.
I took the what's the stuff you rub on that smells like Christmas? It was really cool. No. It was a doTERRA thing. It's a doTERRA essential oil.
Big cinnamon, like my Christmas.
No, it's not.
And holly.
And hope. It's hope. That's what it is. It's essential oil of hope. And you know, I need as much of that as I can get.
Hope smells so good.
So
Hope smells so good.
so
But it's only
about
promising.
Hi.
was it 6 weeks ago?
Okay, so,
You're doing Reiki standing up? Wow.
okay.
So about a month ago,
you're
I
on the
had
website right
I was in the
now, right?
hospital because my foot was like wonky. And then about 3 weeks ago,
Okay.
I'm sitting in my friend's house
So
shaving,
scroll down,
and
we're
this
still not
beautiful
on
mirror
it.
that's on her
But if you
medicine
scroll
cabinet
down,
Okay.
you'll
falls
you'll see
off
the
the
first.
medicine cabinet.
first
I'm not touching it.
box
It
should
falls
say
off the medicine
May
cabinet,
2015.
lands on my foot, cuts me open, blood everywhere.
Oh.
Same foot that I had the infection
You
in.
can
I'm like,
drink all of it or just-
and everybody's telling me, oh, your right foot's about moving forward, so something's
And then
going on in your
we
life
all-
where you're not moving
Okay, so
forward. I'm like,
refresh your page.
what the hell?
I'm pretty sure it's just shoddy craftsmanship.
Type the address like a.
I don't want to read too much into it, but you know, there it is.
What's that?
There should be somewhere.
So we missed you last month.
Yeah,
The last couple of months. It's
It's
just
been
like,
2 months, really?
yeah.
Little button.
Okay,
that's
'cause,
like a circle with
My
an arrow.
girlfriend signed up for like this
Yeah.
other class for 10
No.
weeks.
There is no other class.
There's
I
one.
know,
that's
it's-
with an arrow.
What are you talking about?
She's like,
The
surprise,
arrows
we're
that
doing
go
this.
left and right, and there should be one on
But-
that tomorrow,
Yeah.
somewhere
It's
in
like I'm
It
that
definitely didn't get out
area
as
of your
much out of that.
browser
being
that
here.
has.
Okay.
I thought, well, at least we got remote, so I'll send you a remote.
It's
remote.
crazy.
Right.
It's like
Did you do it?
all of it.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then.
How is it when you're away? Is it hard to hear?
For you to
Sometimes,
go to the
sometimes
start
the body.
and go back into the website.
Yeah.
Just open
The good thing about videos, you can always go back to it.
Right.
I'm sorry if I smell like
Yeah.
oils.
I do
Great.
that
Well,
too.
you smell like a spa, which is
Okay,
nice,
good.
actually. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you're
you,
sick, Mr. Man.
you totally smell like a spa. I love it.
Sorry.
No, no,
Like if
it's
someone
great.
doesn't like it, they'll be like,
You're still saying?
Yeah, just
Oh,
the
yeah.
cactus
And it's 4 weeks. I lost my voice. I couldn't talk.
I'm
So
not-
cold,
my
and I was
friend-
like,
Kathy.
it was awful. Yeah. So yesterday and today's Wednesday. So Sunday I started feeling, I
Yeah.
could tell it was
She always
truly
says.
actually broken. I just have a little bit of a cough. So I don't think about it, I don't cough, but so I start thinking about it. But it's all cleared up, so it's good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
To find him.
Did you something to your like, dry hair?
Right now it's just a mess. I'm going on Tuesday to get it cut and all that, styles and all that, because it's been 2 months. And I usually go every 3 weeks, so it's like.
Yes, so
You look like
so
you
you
spent
do
like
see
a
now the
weekend in
May
Hollywood
2015
and came back.
Awesome. We'll say that's the case. That's what I'd be saying. My life has been turned upside down, and I just haven't had a chance to get my haircut. So I just hanging out with the stars.
The kids are going inside.
I like that color, by the way.
So what you're gonna
Your
do
shirt.
is.
Thank you. Everyone in the room has told me how much I like my purple, so I'm gonna wear this purple now every day.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna get 10 more just so I can have it. You know.
Yes, I actually feel like.
Shut up.
I want to be contrary.
I don't know.
So, just sit tight.
What's
and
purple
not
on the whole spiral?
Hypnotic.
Excellent.
Perfect.
His favorite color, so we know that it's super hypnotic.
So there you go.
Feng Shui, it's
That's
prosperity.
why
Spell on
Willy
your wall.
Wonka wore purple.
It's prosperity.
It's just a-
Is it prosperity?
It's Feng Shui.
Oh, feng shui is prosperity. Awesome.
That's good.
Yeah.
Spiral.
Caveman?
Yeah.
Purple is cave. That's what I was wondering. Yeah, that's right.
So if you were to just check right now, you would hear us all talking.
Well, all right then.
So if you
Get my
want to
tribal
do
on.
that-
Get my caveman on.
It's 4,000.
So I didn't realize in feng shui that colors actually had.
Tribal.
Yeah. So-
Yes, that's what I was told by my friend here, who's not trying to just
Okay, no
yank my
problem.
chain.
All right.
Boom.
Hey, guys.
So
We're starting with everybody or
I'm
not.
drawn in my home
You guys need
to warm colors,
Um,
reds and oranges and yellows and browns.
Oh.
What's the feng shui of that?
had a
if I may ask.
almost.
Well, yellow is health.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the center of, say, the Bagua.
My bathrooms are yellow.
Yeah,
I'm yellow.
okay.
This is good.
Which is good because depending on where your bathroom is as well.
Yeah,
But because bathroom is usually too much water
Uh-huh.
anyway, so you should never have blue in it. A lot of people tend to put blue that has too much water.
Oh, interesting.
So yellow is good
Blue in the
because it
bathroom?
kind of balances.
Put extra blue in the bathroom?
No,
No.
No blue.
no blue.
No brown either.
Brown is earth, so that's okay, you know,
That'd be
balance.
flush.
You guys laugh.
Yeah. So brown, yellow.
What about reds?
Reds are is fame.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it has to do with fame, it has to do with,
Oh, awesome. My office is red.
respect, integrity. So that's part of that is part of the bomb. It's right next to for example, the top right would be prosperity and top center would be fame. So they're right next to each other.
Wow.
Awesome. I'll wear
And
my
that's
purple
part
shirt
of
and my
the
red
power,
office.
the power section are the
For the
top three.
board down here.
I point to you and he's almost red. So prosperity, fame, and pink is relationship.
All right,
the
you're
power.
actually save that for a second because we're gonna need that.
Oh.
Can't believe it or not.
What about orange? That's good.
Orange.
Orange.
Orange is just a combination of earth, because earth is center.
Right.
So it's combination of fame and, you could use it for either way, fame and health.
So I have a gray in my home.
Gray
Oh,
is helping
gray.
hands.
Gray.
What's health? What's health?
It's a lot of
Let me
poltergeists.
show you.
So helping hands is it's a cool section.
Okay.
No elements, but it's very good. It has benefactors, it has to do with travel.
There you go.
I like your feng shui. It's all positive.
There's no way to put.
It's all happy.
Well, she hasn't told you all the bad stuff. Now, do polka dots? Because if you do polka
That's
dots,
blue.
What was
And
it?
the wrong color combinations, you like fashion death.
right?
You want
Yeah.
to better.
All right.
From the club.
With all of you that are here because the room is so packed, we're gonna get started. Are you ready?
Awesome.
Good. Thank you for coming on time. Thank you for coming early. Thank you for coming to the final meeting of Pinnacle for the year. Or for the season, I guess it would be. I am. You excited?
Yes.
Yeah, do you know what's in store for today?
Lots of good
Did
things.
you read the Facebook post?
I did.
Good. So a couple surprises. Hi, Adrian. Hi, Mondo.
Hey.
Armando's just
Hi.
joined us. This is Armando.
Hi, Armando.
Hey, Armando.
Welcome.
Hi.
We're streaming live, don't
Do you go by Armando or Mondo?
Either one.
Yep.
Which do you prefer?
Depends if you're feeling frisky.
Right, so he's fits right.
Well,
in.
now wait.
All right. So here's what we're gonna do today. If you haven't noticed, I'm a little under the weather. Last night, Tanya's already hooking me up with all her homeopathy and everything, which is great. My throat was a little off yesterday and I woke up with it pretty off again today. And we're about to start a 5-day course coming Saturday. So here's what we're gonna do. Are you ready? Good.
Yes.
And if you're watching at home, this is for you as well. And people are coming in, some people are listening in as they're on their way in. I got a few texts about people being late. So if you didn't know already, this is our last meeting for the season. May is the last live meeting. I know. If you haven't already done the Pinnacle survey, that's available on Facebook, and I think I already also emailed you a link. Please find that and fill out the survey.
So sorry.
I know. If you haven't done the survey, that just means your voice isn't being heard. And it would be really, really useful for everyone to fill it out because what I'm asking is questions about how do you want this structure to most benefit you, right? And I'm not big usually on surveying my crowds. I'm more the Steve Jobs type where I say find out what they don't know they want and then give it to them. But in something like this, I think it's really important, right? Because as you know, we have over 40 members and we have about 8 of you here. So we're 9, I guess 10. So that says something about the structure itself. So what I'm looking to do for this next coming year is I need to roll it out and launch what we're going to be doing. And I want to make sure that it really fits for everyone, right? That is important. I don't want this to be a drag, a thing that you're like, oh God, I still got to get to that meeting. I want this to be the thing that you look back over a year doing it and say, thank God I was doing Pinnacle because these are the things that really impacted me. And I'm going to send out another survey with some other information as well. So I really appreciate that. Honestly, it's for you guys. If I don't hear from you, I've heard from about 10 people so far. So if I don't hear from the rest of you, like I'm going to make up what I think is good. And I think it's better to make up what you think is good. That make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I want this to absolutely kick ass. I'm committed to doing that. I'm committed to showing up. I'm committed to doing exactly as I say. So here we are. So today is going to be all about some fun. Some fun. This is actually not going to be the Matt show this morning. It's going to be the you show. What it's time to do is I've had a few private coaching sessions, and as I start to notice throughout those private sessions with Pinnacles, I tend to see themes. And one of the themes is I need to start speaking more or at all, but I'm still not exactly clear on what it's going to be. I need to work that out. And so again, many of you have been here and done that, you know, lots of experience. Some of you are just like launching it this year. But either way, I believe that every one of us has something valuable to teach. And if you take the frame of a teacher, you can get onto any stage, virtual or live, and people will like that, right? You'll command their respect because you're able to teach with intelligence, okay? There's something cool about that. So what I want you to do right now is take a few minutes, and I want you to write down, if I said to you, I want you to speak at my next seminar, Inner Mind Breakthrough Phase 2 coming up on Saturday. I have a guest speaker spot. I have 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. Would you be willing to speak?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Sign me up.
So the question is, what would you talk about? Do you have it locked down? Today is going to be something that, you know, we have a video. If you haven't already watched it, we have a few videos on the site. One of them is about being a rock star speaker. So, I mean, it's 3 hours plus of content teaching you how to design a keynote talk. So I purposely didn't rehash anything I have on the videos in the live classes because, well, it's already on the video, right? So there's no sense doing that. But this is something that I believe feedback can be crucial. So I want you to design a makeshift keynote talk. Just do this. Are you ready? First element, I want you to make sure that you have, and we're going to actually start, this whole day, we're going to teach Mastermind. You're going to come up and teach. We're going to give some feedback, and each person, as many as possible, we're going to have a chance to do this in front of everyone too.
Awesome.
I know. So get excited or scared or whatever you want to get, but get something. So here's a few elements just to make sure we all have them. Element number 1. You should always start your talk by pointing out the problem that you're fixing. Now, there are probably as many different ways and formats to set up a keynote talk as there are people teaching it. This, in my opinion, is probably the simplest formula of what I would do if I speak on stage. If I have 5 minutes or 5 days, right, this is what I would need to do. And here's my herbal lemon tea. Thank you. All right, so element number 1, what's the problem that you came here to fix? You need to make them aware of it. I was doing a coaching call the other day, and I came up with just a really simple and great metaphor. I liked it. And I think I mentioned this probably at the last meeting. I'd say if you were a drugstore, right, a CVS or something, you probably wouldn't, if you were smart in marketing, you wouldn't put out a sign out front that says, "Are you dehydrated? Come in and buy electrolytes." Does that make sense?
Yeah, no.
But how many of us, especially in the coaching and you know, holistic type world, are trying to advertise electrolytes? Because you're like, no, you don't understand. People have these problems and they're all dehydrated. Doesn't everyone know they're dehydrated? They need my electrolytes to fix their dehydration. You gotta understand, nobody gives a crap about the fact that they're dehydrated. They either don't know it, or if they know it, they don't care. That's not the problem. So what would they be better off doing on their sign?
Putting the
Cure your
symptoms of dehydration.
So what's a symptom?
Tired, sluggish.
Headache, tired, right? So are you feeling tired, or do you have a headache? Come in and get it fixed. You got a headache? We have your aspirin. So I want you to, as much as possible, think about the content that you do and the work that you do and decide what is your headache, right? Because what we're actually doing is there's 2 levels, if you think about this. The client comes in at the level of, I have a headache. You're going to fix the headache, right? That's what you're doing. Come on over here. Okay. Introductions will be done at lunch for the people who are late. At any rate. So you have a surface symptom that people will relate to, which is called the headache. But then you have the deep symptom, which is, well, this is really the problem of, like, so you have the surface problem and the real problem, right? You know good and well you solved the real problem, but you need to market and address the surface problem. Make sense? Cool. So you're gonna spout about how you fix headaches. Then in your talk, you're gonna get into and say, well, let me explain to you how headaches occur. Let me explain to you where they come from. One of the number one causes of headaches is actually something very little known, dehydration. Again, this is just a metaphor example, right? And then you're gonna teach all about dehydration, how it happens, how it occurs, and some of the easiest methods to fix dehydration. And what's the easiest method to fix it? Well, one of the things that we need to have is, salt balances and whatever, and electrolyte balances in our body. So what we created is a product full of electrolytes, and then you sell them Gatorade or whatever, right? Hopefully something better than Gatorade, but you know what I mean. So we have 4 things. What's the first thing we need to identify?
The headache.
The headache. What's the second thing?
Explain how a headache occurs.
All right, so we have the surface problem, which is the headache, and we have the deep problem, which in this case was what?
Dehydration.
Dehydration, right? And then we have what fixes dehydration, which is what in this case? Electrolytes,
Or stored.
right? But your store is selling a product, and you're gonna explain that your product, electrolytes, fixes the problem of dehydration that you didn't know you had because you're trying to really fix your headache. Does that make sense? So you have those 3 things. There is a 4th element that you might want to consider, and that's the aspirin. That's the thing they think they want. They want to fix their headache, so they came in to buy an aspirin. You said, yes, we have aspirin, come on in. You educate them about dehydration, sell them what they really need, which is electrolytes. Anyone not follow this? Was that cool? If that was confusing or not, was that good? Okay,
Okay, so element 1 is the headache,
which is the surface, so headache equals surface problem.
right? And then 2 is the deeper problem,
Deeper problem is,
and that would be the
Dehydration,
dehydration.
right.
Yeah. And then element 3 is going to be what
the solution to the deep problem, which
Okay,
in this case was electrolytes.
right. And then,
Element 4 is like a bonus. That's actually the solution to the surface problem. It's the thing they think they're looking for,
which would be an example
an aspirin. Right? I have a headache, I want to go get an aspirin. No, you have a headache, you need to understand what's deeper. And that's the work that you do, whatever it is. I'm sure all of you have that. And then you have the solution to fix that deeper problem.
So you're going to take the aspirin with Gatorade.
No, you're not even gonna take the aspirin.
Well, you said.
No, you need to know and be aware of what they think they're looking for. That's the secret.
He's already selling packages.
Yeah. So why am I taking the time on doing this? If you don't know what in your world, so this is what I want you to do, the first little brainstorming bit, in your business, identify those 4 things as best as you can, right? What's your customer's headache? What's your customer's aspirin? What's your customer's dehydration? What's your customer's electrolytes? Easy, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Too many coaches, speakers, and people in the entrepreneurial space focus. I say, so tell me about what you do. And they tell me all about freaking dehydration. And all I think to myself is, God, like, I don't know that I care about that. I mean, I do, I get it, right? But I don't get it. I don't really care. It just kind of just gnaws away at me. It's like this horrible buzzing in my head. Just, I can't get it out. You know what I mean?
You need electrolytes.
Yeah, I really do. I really do. Tell me about what you do. Tell me about homeopathy. Tell me what you do. And she goes, oh my gosh. And she'll tell me all about the dehydration and then all about the electrolytes. And you're having a conversation at a level that is inappropriately contextualized. Because you most of your keynote talk, as an example, like 90% of your keynote talk might be at that level. But you got to get there first. You got to get their attention. So what you want to start this explanation with is you need to say, hey, how many of you have a headache? Has anyone ever had a headache before? Good. Has anyone ever felt sluggish and slow and low energy before? Yeah? Okay, cool. I'm going to talk to you today about how to fix those without an aspirin and without taking coffee twice a day. Does that sound interesting? How many think that sounds a little more interesting than, let me tell you about dehydration, how to prevent it, and how to use electrolytes? Do you know what I mean? Because again, most people spend their time talking about the deep stuff without ever bridging the gap. You got to bridge from the surface to the deep. If you don't, the clients aren't going to get it.
So wouldn't you talk about number 4 before 3?
Yeah,
All right. Okay.
yeah, we should talk about number 4 before. You would
Right.
most likely,
What you think is the problem?
yeah, I taught them out of, they're not in sequence.
Right. Okay.
So you have surface problem, surface solution, deep problem, deep solution. That's a better way to teach it. There we go.
Yeah.
Next time I do it, it'll be even faster.
Awesome.
Super good. Everyone got it? Okay. So you're all going to start your talk, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds or so to explain something about, hey, you all have a headache, and you're looking for an aspirin. Let me talk to you today about what the real problem is and how to fix that without having to worry about this.
Okay.
All right, that's what you're going to do. You have about 30 seconds to do that, give or take. The second part of your talk, you have to have your own story. If you don't already, you're going to. Okay. I'm going to be talking to Dr. Key here about teaching a segment to one of our mastermind calls about storytelling, about how to create your story. He's probably one of the best examples of someone who knows their stuff around this element in our mastermind. And that's actually one of the things we're going to start including coming up over the next year is having mastermind teaching with each other. So I think that would be something valuable, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So too.
I'm
So,
confident.
so every mastermind will have a chance, to have a couple of people teaching on something they really have. It's not a selling thing, it's a teaching thing. But obviously, if you want to buy what they have, you probably should. But it's definitely, it's an element to be able to expose yourself as well as being able to teach your fellow masterminders. So that's been one of the first ones because we need to get our stories down pat. Here's a super quick element for your story. You need to be able to basically say, hey, can I tell you about myself for a minute and why I'm here, right? I see this as odd as it seems. People miss that a lot when they're speaking and they just don't get into it for whatever reason. And it doesn't matter why, but some people just don't get into it or they don't get into it enough or in the right way. They start telling their story, but they don't want to tell about all the good stuff they do. Or they don't want to sound too conceited, so they don't talk about the celebrity they worked with or the fact that they were an NBC producer for 25 years or whatever, right?
Cough it up.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff, You need to have those elements. So there's just funny where there's pieces missing. Without getting into today, because this is my purpose yet, I'm not going to get into the whole flow of what your story can be and emotional roller coasters and cool stuff. That's what Dr. Key is going to do for us. Today, I want to give you some really, really, really basic elements. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Here's my simple formula, right? You start with this. If you guys know, did you meet John Blanc? Some of you he came and spoke at the last Success Revolution. So we share this formula, simple little element. Start with your high point. Let me just write a couple things down here. We already have the surface. This is from the last one. Surface problem. Surface solution. And then what do we have?
Deep from deep.
Deep solution. So that was the deep problem and then the deep solution, right? So identify those 4 things. You're going to have a couple of minutes after we finish talking here to identify those things in your business. Got it? Cool. Second element, let's talk about stories. You're going to start with the high point. So this is where you basically, all you need to do is this. You need to identify what are some things in my life that kick ass? What are things in my business that kick ass? What are things I've done or do in my life that kick ass? Who are people I've worked with that kick ass? Why is your life and why is your business so good? People need to get, so this is where you do things like credibility. You're building respect for yourself, which trust me, you have to do. If you don't have a solid introduction from someone else saying how respected you are, you need to build it for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not conceited to build respect for yourself and credibility. Does that make sense? So you build credibility, you build respect. I hate to say it, but you also might build some celebrity, right? Where you talk about some of the things you do. And basically people need to look at you and go, wow, I respect who and what they do, who they are. They seem like they know what they're doing. They're clearly successful. And I really look up to all or part of their life, right? So examples for me, this is where I'll say, my life's pretty good right now. I'm coming on 5 years married with a 4-year-old son. And for the last 4 years, I've been basically a part-time or almost full-time dad. My wife's been a full-time mom. We're super blessed to be in our family so much, right? It's awesome. If I'm doing a speaker training, right, or talking to speakers or business owners, I'll say, I've ran a lot of trainings at this point. I've done over 170 3-day or longer seminars. So why do I say that? It is a big deal, but I don't say it because I think it's cool and I'm proud of it. I say it, so what do you think when I say I've ran over 170 3-day or longer seminars and trainings in 4 different countries?
Yeah, experience and credibility.
The first thought is, wow, okay, you're a pro, right? Because it's one thing to go to a seminar where someone says, I'm gonna teach you how to speak, and they're like, they just started speaking. And it's interesting, but a lot of people do that, right? I'm gonna teach you how to do business, they just started. So I'll say, look, I've been there and done that, and you go, okay, well, crap, like he's done this a lot. And if I'm teaching on that subject, you wanna know it, right? So I'll say that maybe. I'll say, I've worked with a lot of different clients. I work with high-end corporate clients like US Bank, the YMCA, New York Life, Keller Williams Real Estate, speak at USC, different colleges around, private clients like John McAfee from McAfee Antivirus. And Armando, you'll love this. I finally added in Ron Welty, the drummer of Offspring, because I realized, well, shit, he's come to my seminar, right? And I met him through Armando. And I was like, and I felt weird about it. I don't want to like talk about that. I never did for years. I'm like, why don't I? Yeah, I need to talk about that because people are like, oh shit, like that's really cool, right?
That's really cool.
So you have to be able to. So whenever you have anyone of any kind of notable press in your seminar or private client, or you even worked with a little bit, or you've spoken on stage with, or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? If you go to an event and you speak for 5 minutes, and Les Brown was there, and he was piped in, you're going to say, and I share the stage with Les Brown, right? So as you build those things up, you need to start adding those bits in, okay? So be okay to add respect, add celebrity, add prestige. How much money you make, if that's a big deal. If you don't make a lot of money yet, then probably don't add that part in.
Matt,
Serious.
quick question.
Yeah.
Does it make a difference if your crowd is not necessarily into that? If we were talking to a health crowd?
If you're talking to a health crowd, you want to add obviously as much as you can around that space.
Yeah.
So if I'm you, I might say, and I'll have pediatric doctors referring patients to me, right? So, like legitimate, right? You have MDs who, know what they're doing and they send their clients to me for the holistic part of the homeopathy solutions, for their vaccines, for their kids and things like that. So that's a piece that I would use,
Okay.
right? What's funny is in this space, we call it the expert space, which is interesting. It's kind of like expert celebrity space. It's a bizarre space. It's like internet marketing meets Hollywood meets yogi gurus. It's like super weird. It's the only space in business that's like this, but it really is. And you have to have all those pieces. People look up to you. There's also a celebrity piece. So if you've worked with anyone, use that. If you've gotten any great results, particular results you can talk about, you can use that. Again, money you earn, you can use that. And the funny thing is I'll say things like they don't need to know what I earn every year or month by month or whatever, but if you have certain bits that are fascinating, right? And you do kombucha, you might talk about maybe the total bottles you've sold, if that is a big number. Now here's what's funny. Do you know what that number is yet?
I could do the math.
Okay, cool. So do that math.
Yeah.
Because you might end up going, oh, it's like 100,000 bottles, or it's 10,000, or it's 3, or
Yeah, that
it's
would
a
be
million.
impressive. Yeah.
I don't know. But the funny thing is if that number ends up being big, maybe in the manufacturing retail business, that's not that big of a number, like compared to craft or something like that. But we're in the expert space. No one cares about that. If you come up and go, and I've sold 83,000 bottles of this, we're going to go, every one of us go, oh, holy crap. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it might be the total bottles sold. It might be the total you've done in a day. So numbers that I use is things like I was a self-made millionaire by 25. Because by 25 years old, my net worth was over $1 million and I started from nothing. So I share that. And the funny thing is I'll also share that I crashed and burned within a year and a half because I followed my dream of coaching and I gave it all up, right? That's part of the story. But the high point is not that. I'm going to get that's the low point. So the high point might be self-made millionaire. It might be when I sold $100,000 in a weekend, and then $100,000 in a day, and then $250,000 in a day. I had a seminar where I finished in one day. We made one sale from stage, $250,000 in sales, and that was a big deal, right? Where there's people who claim to make more, right, and probably do. But when I say that to someone, again, what are you thinking? Especially if you're in the starting space, right? You're thinking, I would like to make $250,000 in a year. That would be amazing. This dude has done 170 seminars and made $250,000 in a day. I'm ready to listen. Yeah. Okay. That's the whole point. Again, you don't have to be conceited and share it from any kind of prideful, arrogant place. If you share this stuff from a place of humility, a total humbleness, it'll go very far. And people will appreciate it. They'll respect you for it, right? An interesting revelation in the last week. The difference between humility and humbleness, humility and humiliation.
What?
Because it's the same exact root word, right? It actually means the same thing just about. My understanding now is the difference is humility means, if you look at the definition, it means you see yourself at the same level as others. That's all that is, right? So and we know this, right? The things you do, the money you make, the people you hang out with does not make you better or higher than anyone. However, the things you have done, the people you hang out with, the people you've worked with, differs you from people. It doesn't make you better than or higher than, but it differs you. You say, I have this experience and they don't have this experience. So you can come from a humbleness of we are all equal together, even though I'm on the higher chair today. That's actually so we can interview in a minute. But you come from a place of equalness, but also I'm different. Humiliation is nothing more than forced humility. Think about it. If you live your life from a place of humility, you can't ever be humiliated. Humiliation is you feeling like you fell because you thought that you were better than in one place or one area, one context. Consider that Confucius quote for today. Humiliation is forced humility. Don't ever put yourself in a position where you can have humility forced on you. Just live that way. Never be embarrassed again. All right, that's your high point. Got it? Cool. Then you also, right from there, here's your segue. But it wasn't always like this. Or it wasn't always this good. Or I had to work to get there. In fact, at one point in my life, and you're going to start, that little sentence brings you now, you can start into your low point. Yes?
And we're doing all of this in 30 seconds?
No, 30 seconds was the aspirin bit.
Oh, okay.
This you're going to have a few minutes for. So your high point, at this point, no matter where you are, think to yourself, what can I say about what I am, who I am, what I've done, whatever, that would sound respectful, that would sound like a big deal, that would sound almost arrogant for me to say it. Because whenever possible, you're going to put those high points into your bio introduction for the MC, and they'll introduce you. Oh, I also throw in things like I'm a rock climber, mountaineer, climbing, technical sense of like Half Dome, Mount Whitney. And I threw that in specifically because I think they'll sit there and go, oh, crap. All right. Wow, that's so cool. Come on through. So add in anything on your personal life, anything on your business life, okay? We're just talking about the fastest element of how to tell our stories. When we get up, and you guys are going to have a chance to speak in front of the whole group. If anyone came in late, that's what we're doing today. It's not going to be the Matt show. It's going to be the you show. We're going to spend the day teaching something to the mastermind group. Everyone having a short period of time to do it, but you have 3 major chunks, right? Or actually, let's call it 4 chunks. The first chunk is your aspirin part, where you're saying, here's the headache, here's the aspirin, but here's the real problem, dehydration, here's the real solution, electrolytes. The second part is your story, and it's the basic format for it. Again, without going into hero's journey, here's my high point of what's great. Here's my low point. It wasn't always like that. What I want you to do at this point is think to yourself, what have I gone through that was super, super shitty? And people can relate to what's behind that thing, okay? There's sometimes like hearing a woman stand up and speak, and part of her story was, I was raped. And they make that the low point, which probably was. The problem with that, though, is, and we can be just straight up with anything we're talking about, right? Okay, we don't need like mess or, we just go straight forward. So the problem with that is most of the people in the room aren't going to relate to that. Because you have men and women most likely, right? Now, if you're doing like an intimacy workshop and it's all for women, that might be a good low point. But you ask the question, what is everyone here kind of maybe going through? What's their fear? What's their challenge? where is everyone in the room probably stuck? And do you think your low point should relate to that? Everyone say yes.
Yes, man.
Yes. Your low point should relate to that, because when you talk about your low point, they should all go, he's talking to me. She's talking to me right now. I relate. So when I tell my version of the story, when I'm talking to coaches, practitioners, new speakers, I'm in that space, right? What do you think my story is? Well, it wasn't always like this, all this amazing stuff and doing all these workshops and making all this money and helping all these people. It wasn't always like that. In fact, I got to a point when I basically lost everything chasing my dream of being a coach. And I tried to be a coach for 18 months. Who wants to guess over 18 months how much money I made in my coaching practice? I do this live. I did this like 8 times in the last 10 days. I've been speaking like mad. That's been part of this. So who wants to guess? And then they'll guess. And they'll say things like,
Zero.
Zero, good guess.
$1,000.
$1,000, really, really close.
500.
500,
900.
$900, exactly.
I was gonna say 95.
Very close, very close. So I'll say $900. And usually they're like, 10,000? I'm like, close, but oh. And what's funny is I'll just do things like this, like, because that makes people laugh, right? So it's not that serious. So feel free to use your own version of humor, because trust me on this. If you say something that you think is going to be funny, it'll probably be funny. Especially if you're not thinking about whether it's going to be funny or not, you know? So feel free to be funny and just use your own version of humor, however it is. Don't try to copy anybody, just be you. And people appreciate it because you'll change your state. And now your story is actually fun, right? I mean, nothing's worse than, and then it was horrible because this happened. And then that happened. And then I lost everything. And life sucks. And we're like, can you get out of that, please?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to make a point, you can stay in one of those elements, right? You can stay there for a minute, but you do need to change the state after that. So I might say, so I worked for 18 months, and at the end of it, I had 3 clients. 2 of them were free, and one of them paid me $900, and believe me, she got her money's worth. So at the end of that, I'm thinking, I'm out of money. I basically abandoned my real estate company and everything else. I'm short selling houses because I wasn't selling them when I should. I didn't make any more money doing that. I put everything I had into coaching and I made nothing. What do you think somebody's greatest fear if they're starting out in a business? What's one of the greatest fears? Right? That they're going to put all this effort and work into it. They're going to cash in their 401k for it. They're going to quit their job. They're going to go into it and end up not making it work. End up making nothing and then have to go back to a job, right? So I thought, God, what am I going to do? I mean, I guess I could always go back and start selling real estate again. But I couldn't do that because I had a dream and I knew that I had a calling on this planet. I knew that God had something for me and I had to help people. I had to help them to change and make breakthroughs. So I started emailing with a person and then I started talking about, well, I'll continue on that, but there's a couple of low points. My low point is 18 months, $900. Then I literally rented out rooms in a short selling house, right? That was on the verge of foreclosure. I rented out on Craigslist, true story. Got the money from that month of rent from 3 people, bought my plane ticket to go to Australia. That was how I got to Australia for the first time to speak. And I had a chance to go speak in front of 400 people. And it blew my mind, the possibilities. I'd never spoken in front of more than 10 people at the time, right? My first seminar was 6. And I land there, and then part of my story now is I'll talk about the low point of being in Melbourne, not knowing anyone, not knowing where to go, not having a place to sleep. I checked the ATM card, right? You guys good? Tanya? You guys good? So I checked my ATM in the machine. I checked my business account. It's negative 250. I checked my personal account, negative 200. I wish I could make this up, but I'm not.
Yeah.
True story, right? Yeah. That's, of course, what makes the story good. Now, was it all down? No. That journey, if you look at this over a 2-year period, 18 months plus the turning point, there was a lot of good and a lot of bad, right? There were all sorts of things that happened. I don't talk about how I moved to Boulder. I don't talk about how I worked for a year apprenticing with someone speaking. And I don't talk about everything that happened. I talk about the things that I feel might be relevant for the group at hand, right? You got to pick a moment in time that signifies the low point that people will relate to. So the low point I get to is I'm in a country where I don't know anyone. I have negative accounts in both my accounts. I don't have any credit anymore. And I look in my pocket and I have $40 Australian money. That is it, literally. And I didn't know where I was gonna sleep that night.
Wow.
So I started looking at hostels and they said $33 a bed. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm speaking tomorrow, I gotta sleep somewhere, right? So I go up to the hostel place and I say, I'll take one bed. And she says, do you want your own room? I'm like, oh, no. Whatever's the cheap one with like 18 backpackers in the same room and all smelly, I want that one. Right? Everyone shares a bathroom. I said, okay, so that's a $33 room. I said, yep, I'll take it. And she said, that'll be $53.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said. Because right now, here's the thing. If I tell this story correctly, and I tell it, by the way, you want to tell it in present tense. So here I am. I'm in this city where I don't know anyone. I walk right up to the person at the hostel counter. And I said, I'll take a bed. So if I tell this, where are you guys listening?
We're with you at the counter.
You're totally with me, right? You're at the counter with 40 bucks in your pocket in a foreign country with no credit, with no money in the bank. You're with me down to your last $40 chasing your fucking dream. You're with me, right? This is all or nothing. I put everything on the line to do what I do right now. And I'm not exaggerating. This is what I did to be here, guys. So when you come up to me and say, well, I don't know if I can afford a training, I'm like, are you kidding me? I can congruently say, I have put everything on the line to go chase my dream and I'm living it, right? So when I tell you that, you don't need to do what I did, right? Don't go do that. But if the opportunity arises and you got to put it on the line, you got to take the risk. Sometimes, with great risk comes great reward. And again, I'm not saying the advice is don't be stupid and, just spend a bunch of money on something or whatever. Don't do that. But if you have that part of your story and you're offering a solution to your audience's problems, and it's going to take some investment on their side, do you think it's a good idea to enunciate that part of your story? Right? So that's what I do, okay? So you're right there with me. And when I say, she said that'll be $53, the audience always goes, what? Right?
Yeah.
Because right now they're like, oh crap, they feel the fear of, but I thought it was 30, but I don't have enough money.
Uh-huh.
And if you're with me on the story, you'll relate to that. Now, you might have thousands of dollars in the bank right now, and if you do, and I said, well, I was there, you're like, oh man, that's gotta suck for you. But if I say, here I am, and you're following the story with me, you're now associated, you're with me, and you're now feeling that same fear as if you only had $40 to your name, right? So, and I said, but I thought it was 33. And she goes, oh no, mate, no problem. It's 33, but it's a $20 key deposit. And I said, shoot. And she said, oh, don't worry, mate. You'll get it back when you check out. It's just a deposit.
As if.
As if I wouldn't have to worry about it because I'd get it back later. And I thought to myself, I don't have it in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't have $20 for a key deposit at a hostel. And it was one of the most humiliating days of my life because I took so long to think so much of myself. And I had to tell her I don't have that much money. And she said, oh, well, you can just put it on a credit card if you want. I was like, no, I can't. And she said, do you want me to save the bed for you? I'm like, no, that's okay. So I walk out. I didn't know what to do. So I added this part in. This did happen. But I think it's really funny. So I'll say, so I walked over and I don't know what to do. So I got a bunch of Chinese food. The Chinese is cheap. It's hot. There's usually lots of it, right? You pile it up and it's full of, MSG. I'm sure that's a good preservative or something.
You're gonna be hungry again in 2 hours.
Yeah. No, Chinese food, like horrible, fast Chinese food. Fill up on noodles and crap and all that, because I'm going to sleep on a bench or something. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I wandered around and I ended up calling a student because I had ran a training at that point, right? Because it wasn't the first day I landed. I actually landed and I stayed with someone for a little while to tell all that part. I spoke somewhere. I had a few students enroll. I'm like, okay. And by the time this happens, I call a student, the only person I had known in that city that I just taught. I was the expert. And I was like, hey, buddy, dude, I'm still in town. I was thinking maybe I could come hang out with you, maybe crash with you. I hate hotels. And he was like, are you kidding me? That would be amazing. I was like, oh, cool. That'll be so much fun. So I go stay with this brand new student at his house. And then I get to the huge theater area with the 400 people I'm supposed to speak. And then I tell a little more about that. But it depends on how long I have, right? If I have a short period of time, I'm going to tell one little bit. I'm going to tell 18 months, $900. I landed in a city, I don't know anybody. and I have the chance to speak. And I got myself down to nothing. I spent my last dime to get to this new country. And then I got in front of 400 people and I spoke for an hour. And apparently I had them at hello. And I sold $23,000 in 1 hour.
Wow.
And I never turned back. From that point, so this was my what?
Turning point?
My turning point. Your turning point should be a small sliver of time, right? It should be a moment in time, ideally. Don't drag out your turning point. The turning point is everything sucked. It still sucked. It got worse. It sucked. And then I did something and everything changed. Coincidentally, you might have many turning points along your path. You need to pick one to have the most effective story. Got it? Because that was one turning point, right?
Only one you've ever had in your entire life.
Ever in my entire life.
Yeah.
Right? You know what another turning point was? Well, it depends. For a different low point, see, the low point I used to do, and I'll do at different seminars, like at IMB, the NLP course, I might tell my low point. My low point is actually one of my high points, but it's now a low point in the story. My low point is working in real estate, making a ton of money, having a net worth over $1 million, and being absolutely empty inside because I wasn't fulfilling my gift, because I wasn't connecting with people and doing what I knew I was created to do. And I stood there with my big office with the glass and, you know, all the Mercedes and all the houses and all the stuff that I thought was important. And I said, is this all there is? Is this really what life's about? And I never felt more empty. Isn't that interesting where that can be a low point, right? So understand your audience, and you can pick a low point in your story that relates to them. So I have this group of people, sometimes learning NLP and wanting to do something new, wanting to transition in their careers perhaps. And the low point they all relate to is, yeah, I'm a banker. Yeah, I'm an engineer. Yeah, I'm in marketing and I hate it. Yeah, I work in television and I am over it. I want to help people. I don't want to keep doing this job, even though people think it's glamorous. And I tell that story and those people go, yeah, that's me, right? That's what they'll say. And a lot of you heard that story at Business Breakthrough last year. A lot of you joined Pinnacle because you heard that story, very honestly, right? That's like the part that you're like, man, you know what? I get it. He was doing, you know, good in his way and he was miserable, and I'm doing good in my way, but I'm miserable. And he stepped on a limb and went out to do coaching, and I know I want to do that in one form or another, start my business. So that's the story I use for that. What's the turning point? Well, here's a cool secret. Are you ready for the best little known secret in turning points? The best secret in turning point history. If you can choose of all your turning points, choose the turning point that best relates to what you need your students to do. Choose the one that best relates to what you would have them do or what you would take them through. So if I run a mastermind, do you think I might talk about I was doing all this real estate and I was miserable and, you know, and I wasn't as miserable. I wasn't miserable all the time. I had a great life and I enjoyed it most often. But I'm going to hone in on the moment in time for the low point, right? The moment in time where I looked around my office and said, is this all there is? There has to be more than this. I know I was made for more than just selling houses. I hone in on that moment in time. And then I say, and then everything changed because I went to a Tony Robbins seminar. And he talked about this platinum partnership thing he has. It was a mastermind group of amazing high achievers, but all people with amazing hearts that want to give back and contribute to the world. In fact, part of your tuition is $65,000 just to be a member. That doesn't include about the average of $10,000 per trip you take. Doesn't include that. But the cool thing is, of the $65,000, $10,000 of it is a mandatory donation. You donate to the Robbins Foundation for kids, right? And it's like, if you can't be in a place where you can donate 10 grand, you're not in the place to join the $65,000 program, right? So that kind of tripped me out. But I saw that group of people, they were just phenomenal people. And I knew I had to get around them. And Tony had phenomenal results. And I knew I had to be around him. And he had so many people around him and so many seminars he does in so many places around the world that I knew I couldn't just take him to lunch, right? Isn't that a nice way to say, hey, don't try to take me to lunch to pick my brain? You guys following this? Right? Which, by the way, I have no problem with that. But honestly, if you're running a weekend with 50 people, you don't want 50 people coming up to you and saying, I don't want to buy your product. I just want to take you to lunch and pick your brain. Do you want that from 50 people in your seminar? Tell me you want that. No, you don't want that. Inside, are you okay with going to lunch with someone and letting them pick your brain and contributing? Of course you are. But in a business, you can't desire that. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you say a little something like that from stage, then the person gets the idea, right? My turning point was I joined the Platinum Partnership Program. It was a huge stretch. It was, even though I was doing well, it was way beyond my means. But I knew I had to get around a caliber of people that good. I knew I had to get around a caliber of people like Tony Robbins. I knew I had to step up and step out of my comfort zone and do something that made a difference. So that's my turning point. And then coincidentally, later on, as I get through my seminar, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to sell?
Your program.
Right, my program. And it's up to you, right? I don't need to even connect the dots and tell you everything consciously. You're going to do it for yourself.
Right.
You're going to say to yourself in your mind, damn it, I relate to where Matt was, because that's where I am. Man, I relate and I want the turning point that he did. I want the new high point that he has. I want that. I want to do the $250,000 in a day. I want to help people in all these different countries and do these big seminars. I want to do that. So how do you turn your point around? The audience will make the connection themselves. They'll say, you know what? He's got a point. I do need to join a mastermind. And the cool thing is I believe being part of a mastermind is a great thing to do, right? So the question isn't, should you join my mastermind or not? It's, should you join a mastermind? And everyone at that point is probably like, you know what? Yeah. The next question is, which one? Well, who are you going to join at this point? The person you connected to, related to, the person you respect, the person that you enjoy learning from, the person you have a connection with? Or are you going to join some random other persons? Does that make sense? Obviously, you're going to join the person in front of you, right? Because they're the person you're connecting with and relate with. So you need to position yourself as that person. So if you're selling a mastermind, your turning point might be around joining a group. If you're selling a seminar, your turning point might be going to an event, right? Because was that a turning point for me too? Yeah. The first time or seventh time I went to Tony Robbins, or the first time I went to his advanced class, Date with Destiny was a turning point for me, right? So you can pick a turning point that relates to what you're offering. That's the super snazzy secret, okay? So high points, what are you getting out of your high point? Who remembers? What are you using this for? What are you creating this for?
Credibility and respect.
Credibility, respect, right? Connection. Low point, what are you trying to do?
Relate
Relate to what?
to where they're at now,
To
possibly.
where they are
Now.
now, right? Really good. Little side note, if you have a low point that's very content specific, okay? Like I ran a restaurant and I was losing money. Your low point isn't really about a restaurant, right? Your low point is around doing the thing that you love to do, but it was failing, right? Doing what you love, but it was losing money, okay? So in the NLP terms, what you're doing is chunking up and you're saying, what was the pattern behind this story, okay? If it was the woman who said, oh, I was raped and it was horrible and I didn't love for years and I didn't know what to do, the low point maybe isn't that moment. The low point for everyone to relate to is this bad thing happened, right? It's not about a rape. It's about I went through a traumatic experience and then I isolated myself and I didn't let myself be loved and I put on 25 pounds and I didn't love myself and I was in this stuck place where nothing was working. I wouldn't let anybody in. Does anybody relate to feeling hurt and maybe not letting people in? Does anyone relate to feeling stuck and not maybe worthy about yourself? Does that make sense? So your story is not about the rape. Your story is about what happened right after. Your low point becomes, I felt like I wasn't worthy and I wasn't attracting clients. I stayed out of relationships. Someone tried to open the door for me. No, I don't need that, right? And that becomes a low point everyone can relate to in one way or another. Your turning point. I went to a seminar. I hired a coach. I joined a mastermind. Or it could be anything else. It doesn't have to be specifically a thing that you offer, right? If it can, all the better, but it can be really any part, okay? Like when I share my turning point in Australia, My turning point is, and then I spoke on stage in front of 400 people and sold $23,000. Now later on in the seminar, I'll maybe talk about how I took an NLP trainer's training and learned how to talk in front of 400 people, right? So your turning point doesn't have to relate to a product. Just make sure it's a moment in time that things turn. And last but not least, you'll end this essentially reiterating your high point, but without repeating a bunch of content. So this is this is the fastest part of the whole thing. This is where you'll say, so from there, it only got better, and eventually, here I am, and I'm happily married, and I'm a full-time dad with my son, and I'm running workshops and seminars like this and speaking all over the place, and I just absolutely love it. I'm super blessed to be here. So thank you for listening to that, and thank you, Tina, for having me here. I really appreciate it. What I want to get into today is I'd like to share with you 3 keys that will keep your headache gone forever and never having to touch an aspirin. Would that be interesting? Okay, cool. Let's get into it. And then you're going to share 3 keys. Any questions on the story before we get to the next part? Yeah? Pretty easy, right? See, don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. But if you follow this in my head, even if I go off on a tangent, I just think to myself, where am I? Well, if I'm still in the low point, I go, oh crap, I'm still in the low point. So, and then I tell myself, get back to low point stuff. And then I talk about more low point, and then I go, God, I've been here too long. Well, I got to talk, and then I'll cut it off and jump right to the turning point. Like, people don't know what your story is supposed to sound like, And if you follow the format, you don't have to worry about it. You just make sure that you're in one, and then you go to the next one, then the next one, the next one. As long as you do that, people will be moved. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it, I promise you. You do it once, and you're going to be like all over the place, but still on the formula. Do it a second time, same day or next day. Do it a third time, do it a fourth time. You'll start to hone in, and what will happen is there'll be parts that you keep, and you go, oh, yeah, I'm going to keep that part. Like the Chinese food, I'll keep that every time. And when I add in, it has all this MSG, so hopefully it was a preservative or something to keep you warm at night, baby. I say that, people laugh, it was funny, but it was true. So I keep that part as my story. I don't think about it. I just always say that, I went and I got Chinese food for $7. But there's certain parts that I might try to tell and then go, ooh, that doesn't fit every time, whatever, just kind of ignore it. So that's the story, okay? So let's do this. Let's break up into groups. And what I want you to do is, as usual, we're gonna take a moment and just kind of isolate. Actually, no, let's not break into groups first. Right now, individually, I want you to make sure, brainstorm what your surface problem is, your surface solution, your deep problem, your deep solution for your business. Make sure you have those things, okay? If you're missing 1 or 2, or you're not quite sure, that's okay. Just write down as many as you think they are. If there's multiple of each one, that's okay. That's actually good, okay? So if you solve headaches and low energy, great, that's 2 surface problems, yeah? The deep problem is what's really going on. That's the actual problem, okay? So think symptom, problem, okay? What do people usually do for headaches? Aspirin. So surface solution, aspirin. What do they do for low energy? Surface solution, espresso drinks, Red Bulls, right? Pretty easy. Deep problem, what's really going on? And then deep solution, what do they actually need to do that you provide, okay? So I want to give you a few minutes to brainstorm that, and then we're going to get into groups and mastermind for a few minutes to make sure you can have your group help you fill in the gaps if you're missing anything. Any questions?
How long do we have to give the story?
It doesn't matter. Not yet. But good question.
So we're now just brainstorming the elements.
Yeah, so go ahead and brainstorm that. I'm going to give you really only about 5 minutes. Go through, you should have at least 2 or 3 of these sorted out if you really start thinking about it. And then don't worry, wherever you're at, we're going to get into the mastermind and you're going to go to brainstorm with them. If you're watching at home, make sure you do this too. 5 minutes, brainstorm your 4 stuff. Very, very aligned.
Yeah, it's a better story.
Okay.
I'll be about to say.
All right.
Start.
Everybody got their stuff?
Yes.
Okay, don't worry. During your mastermind, you're gonna have a chance to give feedback on it too. Okay, homeopathy. Thank you, Donna, wherever you are. Okay. Second thing I want you to brainstorm now is, since we kind of taught, usually you teach one, do an exercise, but we taught two exercises. Map out the basic bits of your story. Not scripting it, just the points. So high point. Make sure you have at least maybe 3 or 4 parts of what's great right now. What garners respect. Low point, just talk about, well, it's gonna be the time that I was here. This is what was going on. I was eating Easy Mac in a trailer. I was living in a horrible, loveless relationship, and it was 10 years, and it was this and that. The turning point was I broke out, and I went and I chased my dream, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so just again, it's just pieces. It's just mapping out what you think it's going to be, not scripting it, okay? No scripting the words, just the basics of what you think it's going to be. And then high point should be like 1 or 2 lines. It's like, and now life's good because I'm doing this. Or I get to speak and teach for a living, or now I get to coach people on happiness. Now I get to help people transform their spaces through feng shui, and it's just such a fun, amazing thing I get to do. Okay? That's it. Any questions? All right, another 5 to 7 minutes. 5 to 7 minutes at home. Fill this out as well. Finish up with your story. After this, we are going to take a break. Ready to go.
You bet. Okay, catch you later.
All right. It's a great question. It is okay if things overlap.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be chronological.
Right. Just more.
Yeah, but
Yes.
the more chronological it is, the easier it'll be to tell.
Right.
You know, like even my story, I'm still working out the chronology of it
Yeah.
because technically I landed in Melbourne, I spoke, and then I didn't get paid for 30 days.
Mm.
So I was still negative, and I flew to Sydney, and that's where the Chinese food happened,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
But it's like, so I just kind of talk about the Sydney part really,
Right.
and then talk about the turning point. If anybody wants some hypnosis for weight loss, make sure they want it.
Donating pounds.
Randomly in the background. Got the business card. All right, everyone almost have their story? Yeah, I know I'm asking a lot, especially if you haven't even done your story before, but trust me, this isn't gonna be your final draft. Just consider the content. Make sure you have a couple of elements that are high points that you can talk about credibility or respectful or fun stuff or cool things you've done, whatever. Make sure you have some part of you that was a low point that sucked. Make sure you know there was a turning point, there was a moment in time. This is when things changed. I sat in a mash mount of Matt Browning and I realized what I was made for.
Greatness.
Greatness.
Destined for greatness.
That's right. I realized it was time to renew for a second year. Isn't that inspiring, right? I think all of you actually have a second year already coming, so. And then high point isn't much. The last one is just reiterating a couple of things. Even just saying, you know, life's a good day, and I'm so blessed to be able to teach and speak and do the things that I do. So let's get into it. Good. All right, 2 more minutes.
On the high point in the last part. Could you say that again?
The high point in the last part is more like you want to solidify the turning point.
Solidify.
That's really all it is. The turning point is, and then I broke out and did this. And since then, things have been great, you know.
Okay.
And now again, I'm living the life I wanted to. Now I get to do this for a living. And
So one way to think of it with this particular structure is the first high point is like the big picture high point, like where I am today, where the high point after the turning point can be more specific to after this turning point, this is what happened immediately that leads to where I am today. So you're sort of completing your story flow and then reminding us that you've already told us where you are now and why you have prestige and all that good stuff.
yeah, it's a quick reminder.
Yeah.
It's almost like just a transition really from turning point to teaching content. It just feels weird and abrupt to end at a turning point. It's like shooting
have
up and you have a cliff that just stabilizes it and you say it again, things are great. Things are great. Life is good. Great idea.
High point on the first one. Is that like, I'm sure.
The high point of the first one.
The high point in the first part is anything that gives you credibility, prestige, or garner respect. So it's cool things you do in life, cool things you've done, important people you've worked with, credentials. Guys, by the way, if you have credentials, you know, if you came from a space where you have an MBA, you know, and you have a traditional education, you should put that in your high point, right? You know, I'm certified as a master practitioner of NLP. I'm a trainer of NLP, master hypnotherapist. I also have a master's in business administration, so I, you know, went down the traditional route. If that's you, like, so any credentials, certifications, degrees, that should go in there too. There is a segment of the population that needs to hear about the credentials that you have. So if you don't have any, find some. If you don't have any certifications, you should take my class. But in all seriousness, you should.
You know, I think I should take your class.
That's a good idea, James.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It just came to me.
I can't imagine a storyteller and writer for a living not doing their full NLP certification to implement and integrate that into what they're doing.
What source that would be for me?
Wouldn't that be
It
amazing?
would be amazing.
And when would now be a good time to do that?
Have it. It's probably the most important things you could ever consider doing. Starting Saturday, but
Starting Saturday.
yeah. I mean, you can start any Saturday this one that you want to.
Like in a couple days, Saturday?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And that's phase 2, but I know you're not into chronology, so you're happy to do phase 2
No,
first.
I am just, yeah, I can just go with the
You're one
flow.
of those guys. I know that about you.
I am one of those guys.
That's good. Looking forward to having all of you guys if you haven't already done it. Seriously, I am. All right, that's enough on your story. Everyone should have at least a couple of bits on each one of these. You guys, everyone have a couple of bits? Good. That's all you need. All right. Well, as per usual, the teaching turned out to be longer than I thought it was going to be.
No.
I know.
How
But
does
we are
that
going to spend the
happen?
afternoon doing that. Here's your last bit. Are you ready? Last bit. 3 keys. You're going to teach 3 keys on your content.
I teach 3 keys, everybody else can teach 3 points. I'm Dr. Key, I'm
Dr.
doing
Key will teach the 3 keys,
I'm teaching the 3
and
keys.
no one else is allowed to do that.
That's right.
Yeah. So as you teach 3 points, sorry, 3 keys,
3 keys, I know.
it's going to be 3 keys to do what?
Solve the headache.
Boom! Points to EJ. 3 keys to solve this headache permanently,
13 points.
immediately, fast,
Very
easily.
specific.
3 keys to solve this headache with no aspirin. 3 keys to solve this headache and never have to drink coffee in the afternoon again. 3 keys that'll blow your mind around this headache. Whatever it is, okay? Intent. All right. So think about your content and the work that you do, and you gotta have at least, like, if you were going to do a 2-day seminar, my 3 keys come from 3 sections of my seminar. We talked about this at the last meeting in April, if you were there for that or watched that, okay? Remember we laid out, we storyboarded and I laid out on the ground what my seminar looks like? Everyone remember that? Okay. So what you'll have is in a 2-day or 3-day seminar, you might have 3 content chunks that are kind of bigger content chunks that are foundational content chunks. Those are the main 3 elements that you teach on or take people through. Well, those are gonna be your keys. So if a main part of Success Revolution for me is doing values with someone, that's a huge deal. So if I have a long keynote talk, one of my first keys will be, let's talk about your values map. These are the things that are most important to you. Let me explain how this works and how when you understand these, you'll stop having inner conflict and you'll stop sabotaging yourself. You'll always move forward and you'll never have a challenge or an obstacle in your way. That's not 100% true, but don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, okay?
Truer words have never been said.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like you want to tell, trust me, this key is so damn important that when you get it, your life will change. And then you start to tell them about your key. Okay? That's it. So what I want you to do right now is brainstorm the 3 keys. So I have re-imprinting negative emotions. There's a key around it, I call it emotional reactions. If you react to things emotionally, you need to re-imprint those and work on that, and I'll talk about how to do that. So the key is, think of it like this, have a name for each one of the 3 keys, right? Like what would it be called? You know, a 1, 2, 3 word label. Think about what does that, knowing that key, understanding it or changing it, what does that do for someone? How does it solve the headache? And there'll be more to it than just the key itself. You're related to the headache, you might be related to, like if I said, you know, I want to share 3 keys that get headaches easily and effortlessly. Well, the first key is you need to rehydrate. What do you have to do? Rehydrate. So let's talk about how dehydration works. That, believe it or not, even though that was our deep problem, that could be and should be 1 key, right? Isn't that one of the keys that you need to understand to solve headaches? To rehydrate. And then what you'll do is for however long you have, you'll teach on dehydration. Pretend like no one knows this because many people don't. And they don't know exactly what you're going to teach. Well, here's how dehydration works. You know, you actually have a cell in your body. Each one of your cells has a certain water ratio and it works like this. And and this is when you can get kind of nerdy and get into like being the person who understands your craft and teaches on it, right? So what's the second key for getting rid of a headache?
An aspirin. Oh, wait, no.
No.
Electrolytes, that's what you're talking about?
Well, that's going to be the solution to the dehydration. All right, so
So I'm looking
let's
at
make
here.
it easy.
So we're starting out, okay, just to.
If, hang on,
All right.
headache, aspirin, yeah? Headache, aspirin. What if you had deep problem times, right? 3. Those could become your keys.
Okay.
Easy? So what are the 3 problems of a headache? Let's brainstorm something that doesn't matter, like a headache. What are 3 of the root causes of a headache, potentially, that you could teach on and then solve for them? Number 1 is dehydration.
Reduce blood flow to the brain
Reduce blood flow to the brain, how does that happen?
from having tight muscles in the neck.
Oh, good, okay. So here's the second key. This is crazy, but having reduced blood flow to the brain. Here's how that happens. Every one of you suffers from this in one stage or another. Your muscles will get tight, blah, blah, blah. And you teach all about how that does. It actually constricts the arteries, constricts the veins, less blood flow, the blood carries oxygen. But you need to teach all that stuff, right? So again, remember, you can get as nerdy as you want. This is the part where people appreciate your content and you being nerdy. If you start off with your content without the big picture, right, the aspirin and all that, if you start off not talking about headaches, please don't do that. Even if you only spend 2 minutes talking about headaches, now they're all relevant. What you speak is relevant to them. They're ready to listen. Then you get into the majority of your content, which is really all the things they didn't know were a problem. If Adrian stood up in front of everyone and said, I'm going to talk today about how to increase blood flow to the brain. Well, on one part of us goes, well, that's probably a good thing. Does everyone think that? It's probably a good thing. But honestly, how motivated are you to implement that? There's not a motivation other than, well, that sounds interesting, right? But if you said, I'm going to help you, anytime you have a headache, get rid of it permanently and immediately, right? Within a few minutes, and never take an aspirin or drink a coffee or whatever again, and be super healthy. Would that sound good? Yes. Let's talk about this. I got to tell you a little about me first. And then she shares her story, high point, low point, turning point, high point. Then she says, so there's 3 keys to getting rid of headaches almost immediately. The first key, right? We need to increase blood flow to the brain. Oh, how motivated am I now? Do you feel the difference? As simple as that is and as small as that is, because she talked about the headache, it got us relevant. And now she can say, let me talk to you about this thing you didn't know was a problem. And I'm like, I'm taking notes now. Okay, so if you do it in that order, the 3 keys become very relevant because each one of the keys helps to solve the problem they know they have. Okay, so increasing blood flow to the brain would be key number 1 for the headache. Rehydrating and solving dehydration, key number 2. What's the third one? You said something. Quality sleep. Right? So getting quality sleep. Now again, the key is not just sleep. Oh, okay, I know I need to sleep better. But now you get to be a nerd and teach something about sleep that they didn't know. You teach about brain waves, or you teach about ways to fall asleep easier, ways to stay asleep, ways to wake up recharged, ways to train your brain for that. Whatever, right? Just things about sleep, like pretend you're a sleep study expert. And you can do that just by reading some sleep studies.
You're still talking about that in the very first part, the very first chunk,
The very first chunk?
where you're explaining, where you're getting nerdy and doing all these things, explaining the brain waves.
No,
This is all within the first chunk.
No, this is the end.
Oh, this is it.
Yeah, the first chunk, all you're really doing is saying you all have a headache. You don't need to take aspirin, but come on in and I'll help you solve your headache. And in the very beginning, you might, to be fair, you're really talking about this, right? You're talking about that surface problem, and you're saying, believe it or not, there's actually several ways to solve that really easy. Very often, and you might talk about it briefly, right? You might do a very, very fast overview, and you could do deep problem times 3. You say, believe it or not, there's actually only 3 root causes or challenges for headaches, and aspirins mask the symptom, but I'm going to help you get rid of your headache permanently. Would you like to learn those? Yeah. Okay, great. Let me tell you a little bit about me first. So you might not even get into this in the very intro. As long as you isolate the surface problem and they all want to solve it, sometimes you have a problem they don't know they have. So you bring it to their awareness, right? Like, what if your problem is fixing sabotage? So you just bring it to their awareness. So I might just talk a little bit, how many of you have ever gone after something like a goal and sometimes you didn't quite get it? Anyone ever been there before, right?
No, never.
Do you think there was ever a time that, I hate to say it, but we got in our own way, right? and you know you could have done it, but you stopped, or you went to do something and you went a little too far and you knew you should have changed. And we just start talking about the idea of sabotage, and I'll talk about it for a few minutes until I get everyone in the room going, oh yeah, I think I do have that problem. Good, so everyone has a problem sabotaging themselves from time to time? Everyone? Oh yeah, okay, good. So we're gonna talk today about how to solve that permanently, and and I'm gonna explain to you the root causes of those sabotage. I'm gonna share with you 3 keys that if you understand these, you'll never get in your own way again. Does that sound good? What's everyone doing now? You didn't walk in knowing you're gonna solve your problem of sabotage. You didn't walk in knowing you had a problem of sabotage. So some of you have a problem they're not aware of. I'm not gonna say it's a harder sell. It's just that you need to market it. You need to motivate them and have them understand they have that problem. So you gotta talk about it a little bit. The easiest problem is the one that everyone knows they have. They walk by the drugstore and they says, got a headache? Yeah, I do. Right? Hypnotic suggestion, thanks. Right? So that's all we're gonna do. So once you tell your story, then you're gonna get deeper into what those 3 root causes are, the 3 keys that will fix the symptom, okay? 1, 2, 3. So decide, what are your 3 things that you would teach on that would fix this? What are 3 things you'll teach on that'll fix this? All I want you to do right now is get what the 3 things are, okay? Another 5 minutes. Go. If you have more than 3, that's okay, but I'd like that magic number.
I was just gonna ask if it's okay to have a bonus 4th that ties it back to what
No.
you want them to do, or no, or is that a whole
Yeah,
separate?
you could do a bonus 4th, but tie it back to what you want them to do. And the 4th solution is join a mastermind.
Exactly.
I mean, that's not. But you could, I've seen, 7, you could do 7, depending on what kind of structure of what you have. You could do 3, and I want you to asterisk the one that you feel like is either the easiest to talk to, the most interesting, or the most important of the 3. Because sometimes you'll only have 15 minutes and you're gonna share 1 key. You'll do chunk number 1, you'll do your story, even in 15 minutes. You do an abbreviated chunk 1, an abbreviated story, and then an abbreviated 1 key, and then you get to the 4th chunk, which is your close.
And when you do have 3, do you usually go from like, if there's such a thing, least important to most important?
Now, there's no pattern to it necessarily.
I disagree.
James disagrees.
Yeah.
What would you think we would do?
Principle of amplification comes from Aristotle.
Amplification here.
So there's rank your 3 things in order of, there's 2 ways to go about this. 1, 2, and 3 is the strongest, middle, and weakest.
Mhm.
You always want to start with the middle one because people will accept it and will see it as being valid. Then you go to your weakest because they're already bought in.
Huh.
And then the third one is your strongest because the strongest is amplified by the weakness of the second point
That's
you made.
so interesting.
That's super
Yeah.
good.
I know my stuff. And the strongest reason, it's true, I'm going to tell you, I know my stuff. The strongest thing should be the thing that you're offering.
Right.
So if you're talking,
Right,
like we're talking in the headache example of 3 different reasons, the tension in the neck, whatever, the blood flow and sleep. If those aren't what you're offering, you're actually offering a solution that's electrolyte related.
Right. Your
Then
last
you
one.
make that your last one so you can segue into your sale or to your next
And you can
thing.
make that last one, if they all feel equal, you can put more
You have to
emphasis
make
into
that
it.
one emphasized to be the strongest reason.
That's great. So I'll reiterate for the computer for everyone. I fully agree. That's awesome. So if you have 3 points, according to Aristotle's law of amplification. Absolutely.
It comes from
Start
Dr. James Key. Thank you very much.
from Dr. James Key. You can find out more at drjameskey.com
That's exactly right.
or whatever it is. But of your 3, you should rank them from strongest, middle, and weakest. Start with your middle one because then they will agree with you.
The middle one is the commonly accepted,
Commonly
there'll be
accepted.
less resistance to it, but it doesn't seem all that, it just gets you buy-in.
Yeah. So you start with the middle one to get your buy-in, then you then do the weakest, and then you get into the strongest one, third, to amplify the weakest. And the third one should be the one that relates to what you're selling as well, which is great.
And what seems for me and for the headache example is sleep is probably the middle one is like, it's probably the weakest one. The
But it
middle
also
one,
makes sense.
it also makes sense, but the middle one is going to be the one with the blood flow constricting. Okay, I'm interested. I'm on board. Sleep, okay, yeah, great. I get more sleep. Everybody says I need more sleep.
Oh, sleep would be the weak one.
That's the weak one. So you go to there next, and then you go, but electrolytes are really what's going on in your body.
Boom.
Boom, drop the
Muscle
mic.
tension is really important.
Right.
Sleep, everyone knows that, but that's important.
Right.
What was
But
the
real
second one, the
big daddy-
weakest one?
The second one's the weakest one, the third one is the strongest one.
Doesn't-
And relates to what you do.
And just be clear, it's not that it's weak, it's the weakest in relationship to the three.
Right.
And it may be weak in relationship to how you present it. It's like a
It's
toss
all,
up.
it's all
It's like-
frames.
Yeah,
Yeah, because if Adrian's doing massage therapy, she's gonna position, well, electrolytes, super important, right? Everyone needs to get that. If you don't have those, you will get a headache, right? Number 2 is sleep. We all know we need more sleep. Let's talk about that a little bit. Number 3, though, this is the big one. Constricted blood flow.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me, right?
What if you're selling all three?
Well, then, great.
That's great.
Can't say no.
I mean, right?
All good. You just
So
have to
we're gonna
rank
give
them.
them electrolytes, sleep with them, and massage.
Let's be honest, I know by practice.
You just stole my business plan.
Wait, what?
That's my business plan. But if they're, if all 3 relate, then that's great.
Yeah, that's super for you.
Because that's what it is for me, right? We talk about unconscious conflict with values. And here's what I love, right? If all 3 of them do tie back to what you're offering, like a seminar, and you're teaching all those at your seminar, how golden. Because then at the end of every one of your keys, you get to seed, as we've already taught in previous masterminds, you get to seed where they can get more of that. So you'll say, blah, 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 I have this holistic package. Let's talk about electrolytes. And one of the things I actually put together in my holistic packages for my clients is not just doing body work, but actually including all the electrolyte products that'll help them rehydrate and stay healthy. That's one of the many things I do, right? Anyway, key number 2, sleep, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things I do is I include in my package that my clients do, my 6-week coaching package, I include a hypnosis CD for better sleep from my mentor, Matt Browning, because he already recorded it. You can use it if you want. Or make your own, obviously. You can model it too. And then the third is the muscle constriction. This is a really big one. And that's why most of my program is around that. So if you hit the key and then you slowly just seed, well, this key is here, but this is where I do it. This is where you can learn about it. This is where we change it. I do it in my program. It feels like teaching, not selling. And they're going, oh, cool, okay, so your program, okay, great. They're interested in it because you're just telling them it's the same as the sales formula we talked about last month or the month before, whatever it was. We're saying, yeah, well, here's this need you now have, right? You need to replenish your electrolytes. Oh, and by the way, the best way to do that is I created a program that gives you the things you need. And they're like, oh, okay, great. They should be thinking about where can I get it and so forth. So the keys are the most important part of the sale because if you do it right, you taught them, you gain their trust, you do know what you're talking about ideally, right? You're not going to scam them. You actually give them good stuff and good information, and you are good at it. And at the end of each one of your keys, you seed and say, well, this is where this comes from. I do it in my program. I do it at Success Revolution. On day 2, we go through your values and we go deeper on this and you actually discover all 10 of them or 15. And you discover the values, we find conflicts and we do a fun exercise and that's really cool. That's what we do at Success Revolution. Anyway, key number 2. All right. So 3 keys and 3 seeds. Why don't you go for a couple more minutes, then we're going to stretch and get into our groups. Yeah, you don't need to work on content for the 3 keys, just make sure you know what they are. And for the sake of the exercise, if you're not certain at this point what you're offering, you hopefully should be and are, but if you're not, just pick something. Make sure it's a coaching program, or it's a seminar, or it's an online whatever. Like, make sure you just know what that is so you can see that.
Viol's not something you want to get pulled over with necessarily.
Probably not, right?
No, officer.
No, officer, it's homeopathy.
We do it every 15 minutes for an hour.
All right.
But you're not supposed to touch them.
Yeah, I didn't want to tell them that. It's better to put it in the cap. It's okay.
I'm sure it's fine.
It's okay.
What is it?
The homeopathic
Oh, now my hand.
remedies are energetic,
Uh-huh.
so they're highly sensitive. It's better not to touch it and
I'm
just
turning into the whole.
use the cap.
But what in particular is it? It's homeopathic, but what does it do?
It's customized for me.
It's customized for Matt,
Yeah.
matched to your energy.
Sweet.
Wow.
Do we have any writing music?
This is writing music. Just got a question from the live stream. They texted me. They said, how does this relate if you're doing a radio show? And I'm guessing, if you're doing your own radio show, it would be exactly the same. Right? If you're being interviewed or doing a radio show bit, think of it like this. If you know what your parts are, you can do whatever you can. So they're going to ask you questions. Number one is if you have a media appearance, no matter what, whether they ask for it or not, always give them 10 questions they can ask you. Here's 10 questions. Here's basically what my response is, so they know, right? And here's how long each response would take. They drool over that. Those are really good things. So yeah, any kind of an interview, we do that. I do that when I get interviewed on stage. I'll send them those questions. And of course, what questions do you pick? The questions don't matter. There's questions that lead into this format. So you can say, so I know you're working with headaches, is that right? So tell me about kind of how that works. And then your answer is whatever you would share in the very beginning of your talk. Well, it's funny, a lot of people don't realize how often they have headaches. And let me tell you about headaches. And they actually occur from only 3 different sources. And I'm hoping, we can get into that today. Wow. Now you've been doing this for a little while now, so you share a little bit of your story. Question number 2. Well, that answer is 2 or 3 minutes or whatever it is, and you share your high point, low point, turning point, high point. Yes? So you can break this down into an interview process, and that's what I would do if I was on media. And even if they don't ask you the questions, even if they decide, I'm going to ask my own questions, your job is to do this as much as possible. In your head, if you're going headache, aspirin, deep problem, deep solutions, I know what that is. If you know what it is, you can start to talk about it whenever it's possible. You know your basic format of your story. So when you have an opening, you can share that. Someone says, so what was one of your greatest challenges? Oh, great question. What's funny is, today in my life, I've done high point stuff, but it wasn't always like that. One of my greatest challenges was when I went in and I spent all my last dollars to go arrive in Australia to go speak in front of 400 people. And all of a sudden, before I know it, I'm sharing my low point story, right? And then I share my turning point, even though they didn't ask. So the point is, if you know what your structure is, you can warp it around any environment at all. Any environment, whenever necessary. If I said you got 1 minute to share with the group. What do you want to do? Well, I solve headaches. If you ever had a headache, you don't need to take aspirin. I can teach you 3 of the most important keys that are really causing your headaches and how to solve them permanently without drugs or without intervention, and it costs almost nothing. Interesting? Cool. If you'd like to find out about that, come to my table and come talk to me about that on the break. If you have 1 minute or 30 seconds as a sponsor, that's what you do. So if you know what your keys are, you know what your headache is. Does that make sense? You know what your story is, you can put that in at any point when it fits. So that's the media question. People who don't have the structure stuff down, they flail. I say, if I went around and said, everyone gets 1 minute, tell me about you. Well, I like long walks to the beach. I mean, I help people, I have a business that does this and this and this, and I really, teach and I help you to rehydrate it because, some people are dehydrated. And the whole audience is like, okay. But again, if you know your structure, I don't care what the question is. Someone can say, can you introduce yourself to the group? What are you gonna do? Right, as our friend Anthony Camacho said last month, you always need to be seen, right? So you say, Matt Browning, I'm an NLP trainer, and what I do very often is I help new speakers craft their messages so they're effective when they get on stage. That's what I do. Oh, shit, okay. So some people call this the elevator speech, and they call this a what do I do statement and all that. There's all these different formats for that. The truth of the matter is you just need to know what your headache is, what your aspirin is, and what you're doing on the surface. You gotta have your story down, high, low, turning high, and you need to have your 3 keys down. And then you can put it into any format you want.
So it's okay to say what you do, like NLP trainer. You don't have to
Sure you can.
make some flowery little story all the time.
Yeah, so the question is it okay to say what you do? Absolutely, it's okay to do that.
Sometimes that drives me crazy.
I think it's
wanna know
insane
what's
when you
made
get in a
up.
space like this, and you say, oh, so what do you do? This, oh, well, how these people have this kind of problem. Well, I help those people just like you, help to solve them with this and this and that. And you're like, great. I didn't really want your pitch, So there's an element of being pitchy about it, but I think if you deliver that in an authentic way, then you go, what do? It's like, well, honestly, I solve headaches, and I start off as a massage therapist, but what I do is this. You could always say that if you wanted to.
That feels real to me.
Yeah, it does, right? But make there no mistake, you gotta still keep in mind what the headache is, because otherwise they go, oh, neat. All right, what do you do? Oh, I'm an accountant. Cool. That's great. I mean, the conversation goes nowhere. Oh, is there a punch? It's like there's nothing to talk about. So what do I do? Yeah, well, I'm an accountant, and one of the things I love about it, you just go right into, Or, I work in accounting, and the major element that I work on is when people have tax problems and they get the IRS calling them or getting letters, I help them get them off their back. I help to reduce the amount, and I help to get their books back on track really, really seamlessly. And I do it behind the scenes so they never even have to worry about it. Are you more interested in talking to an accountant now?
Yeah.
Especially if you're in business, right? So that's interesting. And again, that would just be what I would say if I want to have ongoing clients. If my big money was in litigating or getting rid of tax problems, I would talk all about that. If my big money is in bookkeeping, I talk about that. Yeah, I'm an accountant. And my main focus is actually doing virtual bookkeeping for people at a super reasonable rate so they never have to worry about that themselves. And all their books stay on track, right? So they never have those IRS, they never have blah, 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 XYZ, whatever. I haven't brainstormed all that yet. Because I'm not an accountant. All right, good? Cool. Here's what we're gonna do. It's 12 o'clock. Get your break for lunch a little sooner than regular. That'd be okay with you guys?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, cool. If you need to take a break, go ahead and go do that. Many of you already have, and if you haven't, go do that. But let's just go for about 30 minutes more, and then we're gonna take a lunch break, cool? All right, so who's ready? I know we haven't mastermind yet. I'm tricking you. Who's ready? All right, Ricky, first up, come on up. Give Ricky a big hand. Don't worry, Ricky, I'm gonna interview you. Okay. No notes? No notes. No notes.
Well,
Of course you don't need notes.
Of course not.
Because where did all your notes just come from?
Your head.
Your unconscious minds, aren't you? Right? So that's good. How you doing? I'm great. How are you doing? Good, good. So I'm excited to have you at the group and at the mastermind here. And what I wanted to do is, you guys didn't know this, but you're gonna have some time in front of the group to teach something. So I'd love to know, first off, kind of what's your expertise in? What's the thing that that's so exciting that you've been working on? Because I know it relates to everybody.
I think it does. Let's find out.
All right.
So how many of you have ever played the I'll be happy when game? You know what I'm talking about? It's like, I'll be happy when I drive a better car, I live in a bigger house, I get a better job, I get married, I get divorced. I have a child, I have a second child, my last child moves out. There's all these reasons, we give ourselves for not being happy right now. And so many people think that they'll be happy once they're successful. And I truly believe it's the other way around. You have to be happy first, and then success can follow. So what I do is I help people be happy right now in the moment, to be truly grateful, so that everything else, I create an unshakable confidence and success in every area of your life.
Really good, really good. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Awesome. Give Ricky a hand. All right, feedback. Let's do some quick feedback. What did you like? Shower him with compliment. What was good?
Humor.
Comfortable. You sounded very comfortable.
Great
Yeah,
energy.
super comfortable. I love the humor. Really good.
Great energy.
Great energy. Good.
Super eye contact, so you connected with us all. You were
Eye
looking at us all.
contact.
Sounds very authentic.
Friendly.
The examples you gave were super,
Yeah.
because they were
Very
a wide
relatable.
variety of
Yeah.
things. And that also agreed with the humor, when I get married, when I'm divorced, when
Yeah.
I get a second kid, when the kid moves out of the house, all that stuff is
Yeah, that was good.
spot on.
All right.
Wow, this is fun. Can I stay here forever?
Hang on, we're now stretches. All right, so where can you become even better?
With the happy when, I was a little confused for half a second.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
the
didn't
first
hear
sentence.
what
Yeah.
we said the very first thing.
Really good.
I thought he said, "I'll be one."
Yeah.
That's what I heard. I didn't hear, "I'll be."
Okay, I didn't
So you
know.
gotta
So-
get enunciation.
So
Yeah, that's it.
enunciation,
Very
emphasis, and a pause is all you need to
Yes.
make that happen, because
Yes,
like we weren't ready to hear what that game was.
Correct.
And so we needed the space to go,
yes.
oh, that's what he means. And then every hand in the room would go up.
Yeah, thank you
That's
so
really
much.
good.
That's all it is.
huge,
That's all it
yeah.
takes.
In
But
my head, I thought somehow it was gonna be like a game. So,
Right.
so I'd like to say something like, how many in your head you've ever said or played this game? I'll be happy when, right?
Yeah.
Something just a little easier, a little more nice. I like that.
or even if you said, I'll be happy when ... to have give us that space to fill in the blank,
Right.
just to complete that thought. Just
It's
something
a
to-
great note only because I've said it so many times that it
That's
just
really good.
comes out so
Yeah.
quickly.
Yes,
but thank
we need the space.
Good. And Ricky's already changing the rules, which is great. So good. Of course, I haven't told everyone this, but of course, whenever you receive feedback, all you can do is one thing. What do you say?
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to be clear. That's really good. If you need clarification because you don't understand the feedback, you can say, can you clarify that? Yeah, that's good. This is the game we're gonna play, yeah? Okay, good. Because what'll happen is instantly when someone says, oh, you do this way, you go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because usually I do this, or I did it this way because, and we're making sense of it, but it's actually also justifying rather than receiving feedback, and I know you already know that. So I'm picking on you, so I'm picking on everyone else. Thank you. One piece of feedback I would say is I felt motivation growing. I think that what you should do though is you could potentially hit more headache. Even so, you were still, I'll be happy when, you were still at the dehydration level. It was motivating, but this is like going into a group and saying, how many of you have ever felt dehydrated? He said, oh my God, and then you start talking, and we all, yeah, I relate to that, right? But what I missed was, what's the real life result? What's the pain in I'll be happy when?
Yeah.
So if you could think about at least one thing that, what's a result that we end up getting that sucks because we play that I'll be happy when game? What's something that people do?
They get depressed.
They get depressed, right? Okay, good. What else?
Self-doubt.
What do you guys do? Give him feedback. If you play the I'll be happy when game and you're waiting to be happy until you achieve something or get something, what happened? What's the problem with that?
You're putting your happiness out somewhere down your timeline.
Yeah, but why is
You're
that a
just
problem?
filling in time without actually living your life.
Because you're not happy now.
Right, but why is that a problem? We're presupposing everyone just wants to be happy. But I want to know what's the problem. You're presupposing everyone wants to feel good in their head. The question is, what's the headache?
Well, I think
Stress.
life is too short.
Yeah.
Not to be happy now, because now is all you have.
So what people are doing is wasting their life,
Right.
waiting for something to happen. That could work. What else though?
Nobody wants to be around your miserable butt.
Ah, so you might see pain in relationships, right? And here's what's funny is you say, I find a lot of people have pain in relationships. Their relationships don't last. And this is a possibility you could say, right? Relationships don't last, or they have strain and fights in relationships, or they just don't have them anywhere near as good as they could be. And the problem around it is they're playing the I'll be happy when game.
Yeah.
They're waiting to be happy until they achieve or get something, rather than being happy in the moment. And if you're not happy, what are you doing instead? Because that could potentially lead you to your headache as well. So if you're not being happy, what are you feeling like instead? Anyone? Give Ricky feedback. What do you feel like if you're not being happy? What are you feeling like?
Sad, frustrated,
Stressed, overwhelmed.
stressed, overwhelmed. Yeah.
Right.
It can affect your health.
Miserable.
Tired.
Pain.
So a lot of those could be potential headaches.
And the neat thing with that approach is that when you ask the question, how many can relate to playing the I'll be happy when game, you've already given us a context for saying, oh, I relate to that. I'm connecting to that. So yes, of course. Now when you call it a game, it's like, oh, I played that game. Tell me more.
Oh, yeah.
But relating to pain first, of relationships not working, of frustrations in your work, of just waiting and being in perpetual stasis because you don't know what's next.
Yeah.
All that stuff is it's painful.
Yeah, and I think that little bit is a problem that a lot of people will relate to, but not everybody yet. It's the problem of, maybe some of you might relate. Have you ever found yourself in a place where you're waiting for something to happen and you're not really enjoying the moment? You're just putting it off, waiting for the good thing to happen, whether it's waiting for the next job or go through all the kid stuff and the relationships and everything. I like that a lot. I just feel like there's a missing piece around getting a couple of headaches in there, right? And that's all. That's what I would say to that. Overall, it was really good. You still had us, right? You motivated us. Cool. All right. You want to hear it again? Okay.
Yeah.
From the top. Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Matt.
Super good to have you here.
Super good to be here.
Awesome. So everyone, this is Ricky Powell, and he's going to share. What are you sharing about? A little bit about how to be happy or something, right?
Exactly.
I'm a crappy interviewer. I don't even mind. You're going to be, because you'll get that sometimes.
Well, here's what I like to ask people to start out with is, how many of you have ever played the I'll be happy when game? So what I mean is, I'll be happy when I drive a better car, I live in a better neighborhood, I get a better job, I finally meet my soulmate and get married, I finally get away from this person and get divorced, right? I have my first kid or second kid, or my last child leaves the home. There are so many reasons we give ourselves to not be happy right now. Excuses. And a lot of times where that leads is to things like self-doubt and lack of confidence, and really just wasting away, because time is our most precious asset. And so if you're not happy right now, life is too short, so what are you doing? And a lot of people believe that they'll finally be happy when they're successful. And in reality, it's really the other way around. You cannot be successful unless you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
So what I love helping people do is helping them be happy right now and understand that success is going to follow right after that. And so whether it's personal or professional, whatever area of your life needs improving, that's where I can step in and help and make sure that your thought process is helping you and not hurting you.
Good man.
Very nice.
I like that. What was great?
A lot clearer this time, I think.
Yeah, the space that you gave us that James spoke of earlier. How many of you played this game? You'll be happy when, and there's a 2-second pause, and then you went into it. Because, we were catching up, and then was like, oh yeah,
That's good.
play the game.
Okay, let's make this one shorter. One stretch, it was awesome. I think I got you went into it naturally. I think I have what your headache is not being successful. Right? You're not quite hitting the mark of success. Because the truth is, you need to decide who your target market is. Are there people who have achieved great and they're not happy and they're miserable? If that's those people, you gotta talk to those people, right? If it's the people that haven't been achieving the success because they can't quite get there because they have to be happy in order to succeed. Right? Excuse me. Because you said, you're waiting to be successful to be happy, but you need to be happy to be successful.
Right. Right.
So that's what I started feeling is, wow, okay, so really what the problem is, none of us are being as successful as we could be. And the problem is we're waiting to be happy until we're successful. Ricky's got the solution. He's gonna teach you how to be happy now. That'll allow us to create success that we really want. That's incredible. I can't wait to understand what your keys are to that. So is that your target market?
Well, I think I've determined that my best target, because I've been struggling with that target market forever. And I think I finally get, I think I finally, wow. I think I finally get that my target market is gonna need to mostly be comprised of people who have more money than they know what to do with and are still unhappy.
Okay.
Right? So that they can afford me and also that I can then really fix that headache.
So if that's the case, then there's a tweak that you could probably do, a suggestion, is that people who have played the I'll be happy when game, but when they get to the when, they're still not happy. That's a whole different kind of context. It's like you've been playing this game all your whole life, and yet you get there and you're still not happy.
Right. Right.
So how do you get out of that cycle? That's a whole different, for me, that's a whole different audience.
Yeah.
And again, I want you to keep thinking, I'm gonna achieve all this stuff. I'm gonna get there and not be happy. So what happens instead? If you're not getting there being happy, what happens instead? How do you feel instead? What do you do instead? If you can pinpoint at least one or two things, that's gonna be part of your headache, right? Because it's not just someone who says, oh, I'm just not happy, I have all this, right? I don't think that's gonna be enough for them to say, unless they're super depressed, on the verge of divorce, suicidal, you don't want those people either necessarily, right? You want the people who are like, dang it, I've been doing a lot, but I know there's more to life. So what's my problem? Right?
Just a question, Jeff. So if I followed up that way, I can still really reach both audiences as well, right?
Well, I'd say, Ricky, that every single one of us has had that experience. But if you're going after someone who wears a cloak of success, that they've achieved all that and they have the money to hire you, they're going to really resonate, I think, with I got this, what I thought I wanted. I got the trophy spouse. I got the car that, everybody oohs and ahs over. I have the house that, requires 3 maids. All that stuff, and yet they're still not happy. They're going to resonate like 100% with you. And then the rest of us who are not there yet, but are wanting to be successful and have it measured by material, whatever, or relationship, will also be able to relate. But if you're typically going after the successful but unhappy person, I think you keep on playing the I'll be happy when game, and you need to break out of that cycle. I know how, right? Because your success is not bringing you that happiness.
Yeah. With that said, I feel like you could probably go to both pretty easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, do you have a headache or do you have low energy? I'm going to solve that. So the question is, have you achieved and still felt depressed or still not felt fulfilled? And you find yourself in a cycle of just still trying to get stuff and do stuff that doesn't really seem to matter. Or some people have never quite achieved what they thought they wanted to achieve. And the very reason they haven't is because they can't be happy first, right? So keep playing with that, okay? All right. Cool, really good, really good. So let's go to the next part. And you guys want to hear a story?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what brought you here? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, Matt, I consider myself so blessed because from the time I was 3 years old, I pointed to the TV and said, I want to be in there. And no one really knew what that meant, including my mom. And what happened was at about 7 years old, I became best friends in the first grade with a kid who was on a series at the time. And so his dad spoke to my mom, helped me get an agent. And the first thing I know, I'm doing an episode of Bewitched, which was my favorite show in the world. And yeah, it was so cool. And, just had such a crush on Elizabeth Montgomery at 7 years old. And from there, it just took off. So I got to do more and more, lots of those old TV shows in the 70s, got to work with Edward G. Robinson on Night Gallery, and the list goes on. And also a lot of commercials. I love telling people that I was on the first Eggo waffle commercial. Was the first kid to say, Lego my Eggo. When we read the script, it wasn't even out yet. We said, what's an Eggo? There was no such thing. Anyway, so had this great career as a child actor, but it started slowing down the older I got. And so I created a plan B right away at 18 years old. And my plan B was to become sort of a behind the camera guy. And from there, well, in high school, my best friend was a guy named Michael Lawrence. And we did The Music Man together. It was awesome. He was Harold Hill, I was Marcellus, and we went on to college. We both switched into radio, TV, film. And right out of college, he got a job at a production company called Wood Thomas Harris. They did Soap and Benson in the 70s, went on to the Golden Girls, which is when I came aboard. I was at home one day, hadn't found a job yet, 6 weeks after he started working there. And I was at home with 102 fever, no voice. And he calls and says, Ricky, this is your big chance. They need a post runner to deliver the tapes to the network. I said, I'm sick as a dog. I can't even talk. He said, it doesn't matter. Call anyway. So I did. And I went for an interview that afternoon. And sure enough, she looks at my resume and says, Ricky, this is very nice, but Michael recommended you. You're hired. And I started the very next day. And so then I went on to have a wonderful career there. First, I was delivering the shows as a runner to NBC. That's how I met them. Got in the Directors Guild. 5 years later, I'm the post manager going to view the shows as a client at NBC. They asked me if I wanted to start filling in for their managers when they were on vacation, which I did. And finally, I left Wood Thomas, went to NBC, and spent the next 25 years there, putting every single comedy, drama, and reality show on the air. So
where are we now?
So now, why would someone who's had all of this success be so passionate about speaking about happiness? And it may sound like it was all a bed of roses, and while it was all wonderful, we all have our challenges. And for me, what happened was, after I started working at Wood Thomas with my best friend, and it looked like life couldn't get any better, about 6 months later, I got a call from the lady who hired me. It was about 8:30 in the morning. It was February 5th, 1986. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was on the 5th floor of Sunset Gower Studios, and the phone rang. It was the lady who hired me. And she said, Ricky, I have bad news. And I'm thinking, you're fired? You know, what could it be? And she said, Michael had a heart attack and died this morning. And in that instant, I just realized how precious every second is. And, you know, time really is our most valuable asset. And so when you lose $1, you can get it back. But when you spend a moment, it's gone forever. You can never get that moment back. So it is so critically important to make sure that you make every moment count, because we're never standing still. We're either moving ahead or falling back. And so for me, I realized when I was in my day job, putting shows like Hannibal on the air, I always love to use that show as an example. And if you like that show, that's awesome. But when I was doing that, I was thinking, how is this helping society? Right. And the answer was, I just feel it's not. I think there's so much negativity in the media. And so I really just had such a passion to one day walk away from that and truly start serving people on a much broader and grander scale. That really focusing on what's important in life. Because so many of us, there's actually an inverse relationship between how much TV you watch and how happy you are. And it's an inverse relationship. The more TV you watch, the less happy you are.
And you spent your entire career putting shows on the air.
Correct. And while I was doing that, guess what? I pretty much didn't watch TV. You know, even at work, I was sort of fast forwarding to the commercial breaks and concentrating on the stuff that I needed to do. But then I get home, I get on my laptop, and I would research the science of happiness and positive psychology. And it was the best thing I ever did. Because finally what happened was, I showed up to work one day in October, and they marched us all into a conference room and said, the company's consolidating, we're moving all the jobs to New Jersey, and Colorado. So your choices will be to either relocate or no promises, but we can try to help you get another job in the company, or you may be eligible for a package. And I just looked up and said, thank you, check please. And I just knew that that was a sign that it was time for me to really walk the talk and live my life the way I know for a fact I was meant to live it. Just to, you know, Jim Rohn, one of my all-time favorite mentors, used to say, your personal philosophy is the greatest determining factor in how life works out for you. And mine has always been no coincidences. I think everything happens for a reason. And that's another thing I try to help people with, is to help them with their personal philosophies. Just one, if I may, just one quick story.
High point.
Okay.
Don't get
The
distracted.
turning
This is
point,
gonna
right.
go into your.
The turning point for me was that my friend Michael always used to walk around saying, I'm never gonna die. Now, who says that to begin with, especially a teenager? And he wasn't coming from a place of arrogance or cockiness or anything like that. He really meant it. And my mom and I always used to have this discussion, what happens to us after this, you know? And she always said, I think this is it. I think you die, it's over. And to me, that never made sense, because if energy is neither created nor destroyed, it's gotta go somewhere. And so 6 months before we graduated, I was at Michael's house one day in my 1981 Toyota Tercel, and I was backing out this one night, and the gate opened, and I backed right into the post that held the intercom, and it knocked it off. It was like dangling by a thread, and I felt so horrible. And I called him. I said, Michael, I'm so sorry. Let me know how much it is to fix, and I'll be happy to pay to get it fixed. And he said to me, don't worry, Ricky, one day the gate will get you back. And I'm just thinking like, what? What does that even mean? Okay, whatever you say. And now cut to, you know, all these months later. And now when I heard the news, by the way, I was in my college graduation gift, which was a 1985 black Celica convertible, my dream car. And I'm screaming, by the way, down Sunset Boulevard, why him, why not me? Because I felt like I should have been dead 100 times from just stupid stuff I did as a kid and in high school and all that. But I get to the house, I spend the next 4 days there, everyone starts coming over. We do the funeral and I do the eulogy and all of that. And here it is 4 days later, it's Sunday night, and I'm leaving, and I drive up to the gate and it opens, and Michael's girlfriend starts walking out. Now, I just spent 4 days with her. Everything that needed to be said had been said. There was not a reason in the world to say anything to her. Yet, something made me say, so Julie, and I just started engaging her in conversation. And as I was talking to her, the gates slowly began closing, and it smashed into my car, $2,200 worth of damage. And I just looked up and said, oh my God, thank you. Even just telling the story, it's like, I get choked up, because I get the logistics of the pressure pad and the whole thing, but if ever there were a sign to me that my philosophy is now in the right place, that was it. And when you can kind of have those types of thoughts when you go through your challenges and when you go through these losses and everything, I mean, to this day, well, I think that losing him at such an early age helped prepare me for eventually losing my mom, because she really was my best friend, closest ally, all of that. And I feel like I have both of them with me every day, like one on each shoulder. That energy is still with me. And, you know, people have said to me, probably one of the greatest compliments I get when I'm on stage or wherever is, I have this energy that people just love and resonate with. And so wouldn't you love to take that home? Right? I mean, you can do that. You really can.
Taking you home. Speaking of taking you home.
Yeah.
So high point.
So now really, I mean,
Today.
yeah, today,
The last high point is the today.
right. And so what's now happened is that I've walked out of what I felt really was kind of the toxic corporate atmosphere. And now getting to be in places like this and with people like you is something that I never in my wildest dreams thought would be a daily reality for me. You know, now when I get out of bed in the morning, it's like, oh my God, what do I get to create today? And who do I get to help?
Awesome. Give Ricky a big hand. All right. Did you like the story?
Yes.
Yes. Nice. Okay, cool. So what did you like about it? What was great about it?
It was poignant and interesting.
Poignant and interesting. Good. What else?
The emotions in there, like he put the low points of when he lost his friend, and then we were all on board with him because everybody experienced loss on some level.
Yeah.
And
So
then,
low point of losing his friend.
yeah, and then how you
Emotion.
you transformed from that to the 4 days later, how the gate got you back, and how you laughed about it instead of, oh no, the gate got me back.
The gate got me back, and that
But that
that,
meant,
that was important because that meant
yeah, because you changed the meaning of it to meaning that, Michael is still sending you a message.
So EJ, you need to stop taking my notes.
well, because that was proving his philosophy, right? There's no coincidences.
Yeah, for me, the one thing that's really what's often hard for a speaker to do is to convey the emotion of the moment so that we feel the emotion. And the loss of Michael was a poignant moment in your storytelling that actually landed. At least for me, it landed.
Right.
And that works because you can talk about something without having that kind of impact. And you have a gift in being able to make that land, I think, for people who are listening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good job on thank you. Good.
Thank you.
All right. So let's stretch and make it even better, yeah? Okay, cool. So you want to help Ricky get better? Okay. I mean, I know it's possible, but if he can be even better than he already is, right, that's what we're looking for. So the first thing is on timing. Okay. Now I didn't pre-frame how long you have, right? But I want you to do those. I want you to think in your head, high point, low point, turning point, high point. If I was to time them out percentage-wise, the low point is probably the longest period of time.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Your first high point could be maybe call it 20% of your talk.
Yes.
The low point, I'm making these up, it could be about 50% of your talk. Okay. Your turning point could be another 20% of your talk. And your new high point should be 10% or less.
Yep.
Very, very fast.
Yeah, I love that.
Dr. Key agrees with me, which is good.
You are blessed, myself.
20%, 50%, 20%, 10%. If you don't like math, the math doesn't matter. The idea is you spend some of your time high point, longer time low point. Again, a little bit of time on the turning point because that is important. High point is just a quick, there we go. So here's what I noticed happened. Your high point was solid. I know you've rehearsed that part too, right? Most of your credentials in high point are actually coming from your past, right? At this point, which I think is great, okay? Because if you start touting some of the things that you're doing now, some of them aren't going to land with everybody because maybe we don't know what the National Happiness Convention or something. I was like, what the hell is that, right? But when you say I was on Bewitched, everyone was like, oh shit, I got to listen to him.
Yeah.
It's just, it's dumb, but it is what it is, right? You know, who cares what you did when you were 7, but this is important, right? Okay. And so your big credentials are childhood actor, and feel free to list, not every show, but do list more than one.
Okay.
List the names that are the most well-known names. That's the key, right? So you say, I was on shows like blah, 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 blah. We're holy crap, right? And then the Eggo Waffle, that was great.
I love that.
I feel like a lot of the high points after that got a little diffused because you started telling more story that, I'm not gonna say it wasn't important, but it didn't impact. You said I met my friend, which is important, right? And we went to work and just, you can abbreviate the rest of that part though. Okay. Met my friend Michael Lawrence, you know, and we started doing things like working on the Golden Girls and working on this and right. And he said, you know, you got to go down to NBC. You got to, or they want you to call, whatever, right? What was the other one you named that I don't know that I was familiar with? Where were you working before NBC?
With Thomas
Harris.
Yeah,
Thomas
all the
Harris.
girls, right.
How many know Whit Thomas Harris?
Well, that's why I said they do some.
How many know Whit Thomas Harris?
Heard of it.
Okay, what'd you Google? So, so that is that a station? Is that a production company? Production. Okay, cool. So what I would actually say is, so I went to work for my first production company that produced shows like the Golden Girls and
And Empty Nest and Blossom and.
Oh, okay. So I would mention those things, but you know what I mean? Like you want to be leveraging your
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So focus on the bits that are gonna land that will, and that will know. That, because your whole purpose is, I need to provide prestige right now, right? So then to say, so I went to work at my very first production company, and they produce shows like Blossom, Empty Nest, Golden Girls, all the 80s classics, right? And it was so fun working there. And then I had the chance to go work at NBC. And, you know, and I've literally for the last 25 years produced every show that's been on television I've put on that channel. Shows like, name again, 3 to 5 that are well known, you know, the Friends and that kind of stuff, right? I think it's just useful to do, okay? So not that the story part isn't important, because you need to still have a story, but remember your high point isn't really story time. Guys, think of it like that. Your high point is credibility, it's resume time. Low point is story time, okay? So you can actually fast forward a ton of stuff in your story during the high point, just so we know what you've done, okay? And now we want to listen to you. The low point though, this is where you did really well, and you hit and you said, okay, and I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm, you know, and I'm making a good 6-figure salary, you can throw that in, or, you know, if I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I should be super happy. What I found out later, you know, and then, wait, how old were you, where in your 25-year career did your friend die?
Well, he died while I was still at the production company.
Oh, at the very beginning.
In the very beginning.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is good. So we need to play with the timing of the low point, right? I don't feel like his dying is the low point, even though it seems like it is. But honestly, the low point is that happened, and then you still ran a successful career, and you got to the point where it was like, well, what was the problem in the career?
Well, I also didn't really even go into my first 9 years at NBC and how miserable they were because of this maniac that I was working with. And it was in an effort to help him that I picked up my first book on the subject of happiness.
Ah, so that could be a low point. So now I'm working in television. I'm living my dream, producing shows, right? But I'm also working for an absolute moron or an absolute maniac. You know, a freaking
Different thing, more on
And I started feeling more and more miserable when I went to work. Do you think anyone can relate to, you have a job that should be good, making great money, doing what you feel like you always wanted to do, but you go to work and just every day you just think, God, I hate this. I don't like this. This isn't what I was made for. I'm feeling miserable every day when I go to work. And I make a great salary, but I'm really, really getting frustrated. And I'm feeling less and less happy. Well, as time goes on, before you know it, I'm feeling this way, right? So just speak to the part about how bad things were inside while outside you were doing all this great stuff. That's, I think, the piece that we'll relate to.
And it's okay. And what about the death? So does that come first and then the go? I mean, I can use them both.
You can. I feel like the death doesn't fit in this space. I think you're going to use that story potentially during one of your keys. Because what you ended with, so you actually spent about 7 minutes on your story, which was solid. That's when I was like, okay, cool. So high point. And you turned your high point into 8 minutes of basically teaching. Does that make sense? And the teaching was great, but you were just.
The last high point?
Yeah, it wasn't really, none of those were high points. That was a stretch. Does that make sense? You guys all catch that?
Yep.
It was like he was in the story, and then all of a sudden it was seamless, which was great. But I want you to know in your mind where you are in the story. And you started kind of, your brain thought of something, you put that in, and then thought something else, you put that in, and then the gate came in, and all the different pieces came in. Which again, I think we're all good, but they need to fit in the right context. So for the story, you're doing your turning point, right? So you're basically, or sorry, your low point is, everyone should relate to, outside things were great, inside I was getting more and more miserable because I wasn't fulfilling what I needed. That's really what you're saying. That's the heart of your story for working at NBC, right? As you get to the end of it, the turning point is what?
Well, the turning point was when I discovered positive psychology and the science of happiness.
When did you discover that?
After I picked up my first book on the subject, and of course, this guy wanted nothing to do with it, but I just took it and ran with it and devoured every book and, program I could on the topic.
Okay.
Eventually writing my own book and starting to coach.
Okay,
while
cool.
I was still there.
Now, do you guys see what's happening here? We're actually looking at the timeline of the story and shifting where the low, turning, and high point is. So I thought your turning point would have been check, please, but it's not. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah, it's really.
So his low point is not the 25-year career, it's the 9-year career. Yes? Or however long that went.
Right.
How long did it go until you got your first book on happiness?
Yeah, it was 9 years.
So I had 9 years in my dream job and it was miserable, right? I wasn't happy almost any days I worked there. I'm working for NBC, I'm producing shows like X, Y, Z, right? Should be having a blast. People around me are fun, but my boss was horrible and I realized that my environment was making me miserable and I didn't know what to do about it. I felt totally trapped. I woke up not, dreading the day. I went home, couldn't wait to go back to sleep. If there was anything else that happened bad, if relationships were bad, or if there was ever any drugs or alcohol or whatever, that's the time to put that in, right? I'm not saying it is or not, but anything that was like, man, life sucked. I want to hear the part about those 9 years freaking sucked. It should have been great, they sucked. And now we're like, wow, that sucks. Then you say, and then something happened. I realized that I knew I could do something about this. And I picked up my very first book on happiness. And I devoured every book I could on happiness. And before you know it, I'm starting to coach and teach on happiness while I'm working for NBC. And I started going into this environment that was so negative, but bringing so much positivity to it. I can tell you this, I've never stopped. And for the next 16 years, right? For the next 16 years, I brought positivity to this environment, to the media world, television world that oftentimes does not. Because there's an inverse relationship to how much TV you watch versus how happy you are. And I brought positivity to this until finally the greatest day came. This, by the way, is your new high point. The greatest day of my life came. 16 years of teaching happiness inside of producing television, right? Which you did. The day came when they said it's time to reassign, and we're what do they call it? Not downsizing. Consolidating. And here's your choice. And then everything you said is perfect. Here's your choices, Jersey or Colorado, or you might be eligible for a severance package, right? Check, please. And now I'm so blessed because I'm finally, for the first time in my life, all I spend my time on professionally is teaching happiness, teaching success from the inside out, and working with people like you. And that's the end of your story, right? You don't need the other 8 minutes, that was it. Now you say, I'd like to share a few keys that I found along the way. Key number 1, your philosophy dictates your state. Yeah. I found, and then you tell your story about how your philosophy was there are no coincidences, right? Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why it felt a little bit, it almost feels like it's a good story, but now it feels like the story's dragging, right? So you break it up and say, so that was my story. Now, while you're doing your keys, do you think it's good to have stories around your 3 keys? Who thinks that's good?
And that wasn't even really one of my keys.
Well, that's gonna be one of your keys,
Right,
because it's a good story, right? And then, but your story is so isolated now. It's like, your philosophy is going to dictate your happiness. Make sure you have a positive philosophy. Here's an interesting example. So I had a friend, right? And blah, blah, blah. And he used to tell me this. And he says, the gate's going to get you back. What? And he used to always say, and I don't know if he did or not, but you can say, he always used to say, or, when he said that, I realized, wow, there are no coincidences. I wonder if that's what he means. Or if he said that, then you say that, right? Well, as crazy as it is, at whatever year it was, I was this old, and my very best friend in the world, and he got a heart attack and died. And I'm like, I can't believe it. And now I'm wondering why. And then you come full circle and quickly tell the story. But this is all key number 1, mind you, yeah? We're done coaching on the story, but this is key number 1. So then you tell a story about the gate hitting you the second time, and after all that, and you go, there's no coincidences. So you take things like that, and when you make it mean something that encourages your growth, that's how, if something good happens, you can celebrate it. When something bad happens, you can grow from it. That's the secret of happiness. Yeah? So you can use that if that fits. That's key number 1. Key number 2, and then you move right on to the next set of teaching. Got it? Okay. So overall, your story was awesome, really, really engaging, and I want to keep hearing it. Good? Okay. Here's your task now. I want you to tell your story a second time. Okay, it's time to break. So I want you to hear your story a second time. The first time you told it in 7 minutes, plus the 8 that wasn't necessary. I want you to tell it this time in 5 minutes. Okay? That means about a minute on high point. So get to the point. maybe 3 minutes on low point, another minute plus on the turning point part, and then you should real quickly just remember that the new high point is wrapping up, and now I get to do this for a living. I got my severance package, and now I get to teach and speak, and I have my book, and I'm just so grateful, and I get to do this. Right? All right.
Wish I had it. Can I
So
watch,
good.
can I watch it?
No, I gotta get your internal timer going. 5 minutes, ready, go.
Tina, where's the clock?
You don't need a clock. Trust me, your unconscious mind knows how long a second is.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ricky Powell, and let me ask you a question. Wait, shoot. Am I going back
Oh,
to, no, stop.
good. So we just said, so this is Ricky Powell, and he just talked about your thing. Now we're just doing your story. So
Okay,
Ricky, so how did you get here? What's your story that brought you to this point?
well, I consider myself very blessed. I had an awesome career as a child actor. And from the time I was 3, I wanted to be on TV. And sure enough, at 7 years old, I'm going out on auditions. And the very first thing I get is an episode of Bewitched. And so that was so awesome. Had such a crush on Elizabeth Montgomery. And from there, it went on and on. So I did a night gallery with Edward G. Robinson and Yapicotto and Tony Roberts. I had a recurring role on The Smith Family with Henry Fonda. And Ron Howard played his older son. So I got to work with tremendous people. Little House on the Prairie. I was directed personally by Michael Landon. My 3 Sons, Mod Squad, The Rockford Files, all these cool shows. Did the very first Eggo Waffle commercial, first kid to say like, oh, there you go. And really wrapped up the acting career in a couple of scenes with Tom Cruise in his second movie, and one line in the movie Airplane 2. That was awesome. It started slowing down. I needed a plan B, so what I ended up doing was moving behind the camera. And my very best friend in high school and college ended up getting a job at a production company. 6 weeks later, I'm at home with the flu, no voice, 102 fever, calls me and says they need a post runner to help deliver the tapes. So I said, I can't go in, I'm sick. He said, it doesn't matter, call anyway. I did, and I got the job because of him and started working there the very next day.
Awesome.
And this is a fabulous production company. We did shows like Golden Girls and Empty Nest and Blossom and John Marquette, and the list goes on and on. And really, I started as a runner delivering the shows to NBC each week, and I climbed the ladder there, got in the Directors Guild. 5 years later, I'm going as the post-production manager, viewing the shows as a client. And I ended up leaving the production company and going full-time with NBC for 25 years. So now, what happened was I was living my dream, and you would think, how awesome is that? But really, my first 9 years at NBC were miserable because of this maniac that I was working with. Wasn't really even my boss, but I just knew it was very important to keep him happy, which was an impossible feat. Anyone familiar with, bipolar, love being a victim, love the drama, all of that. I was so miserable. The only way he would leave me alone is if I were complaining when I got to work, and that's just not me. On my way in on that 38-mile commute, I was thinking of things to complain about so that he would leave me alone. So in an effort to help him and help myself through that, I picked up my first book on the subject of happiness. And I read it, and of course he wanted nothing to do with it because, he was that guy. I was so fascinated, I took it and ran with it and devoured every book and program I could on the subject. Really became an expert myself and wrote my own book and started coaching and helping people while I was still at NBC. And so now here I am in this quote dream job, but really what was giving me the most satisfaction was helping other people and serving on a much bigger scale. And so I'm really messed up on my timeline.
Where are you in the 4? You're in your turning point, right?
Yeah.
So finish your turning point.
Okay.
So now you're in the last 16 years of NBC coaching on happiness.
Coaching on happiness, and what really landed with me is something that I learned from Jim Rohn, because when I found out he was Tony Robbins' mentor, I devoured everything I could on Jim Rohn. And one of the things he said that I loved was your personal philosophy is the greatest determining factor in how life works out for you. And for me, it's always been no coincidences. I think everything happens for a reason. And a lot of times it's easy to say that when good things happen, what I learned was it's also very powerful when horrible things happen. For instance,
That's gonna go into your key.
right.
So let's wrap up the high point. So
uh,
you need the severance package, and now you're so grateful you get to do this for a living, is basically
Okay.
all it is.
Okay, right, so,
So 16 years you're teaching happiness.
right,
at
so I
NBC.
spent, so those first 9 years were miserable, but the next 16 were incredible because I got to start teaching on happiness. And I launched my own website. My first one was I Choose Happiness, about how it's a choice you can make regardless of your other circumstances. That's morphed into lifelong happiness. And I had always wondered how I was going to walk away from that six-figure income. I knew I couldn't just do that. Well, they helped me make the decision. What happened is one day last October, I walked in, they told me that the company was consolidating, they're moving everything to New Jersey and Colorado. So my choices at the end of the day were I could relocate, I could possibly get another choice. Is that 5 minutes?
Yeah, really good. And,
Yeah.
and you can relocate, but you said,
Oh, but I said, I said, or you may be eligible for a package. And I just kind of looked up, said, thank you, check please, I'm out. And now I get to do this every day and, you know, really serve people on a much grander, much more important scale than putting shows like Hannibal on the air, which I think.
give Ricky a big hand.
Thank you.
That was really good, especially for 5 minutes. Yeah, super good. Your timing, just so you know, was about 3 minutes, no, 2 minutes on the first part, and then less than a minute on the low point, and then a lot on the turning point.
Okay.
So what I want you to do is, you keep telling this story, right? Practice telling it in 3 minutes, in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, right? In 30 minutes. The longer it is, the more details you add in. The shorter it is, the less details. You might not pick every single bit about the high point. You might just say, you know, I was a child actor working on so many shows like this. And as I moved on, I was so grateful I was able to get into production. And I worked with a production company, you know, that was putting on Golden Girls and that's awesome. And from there, I got picked up into NBC directly. You know, like that can be, does that make sense?
Right, sure.
And that's 10 seconds of a high point, but we're all like, oh shit, right?
Right.
Remember what your point is. On the high point, what's the purpose?
Credibility.
Credibility, prestige, right?
Right, yeah.
Right, respect, and connection if possible, but those are the things. Low point, what's the purpose? Emotion,
Relatability.
relating, connecting with the audience, digging into the wound, right? Turning point, what's the purpose?
Not market.
Transformation.
This side? Transition, yes. Feel free to talk, there's no wrong answer. What's the purpose of the turning point? It's your transformation point, what else?
Inspiration.
Give them inspiration, it's the why. It's the, hey, you have the same problem I do, right? This is how I got out of it. It was
Let's report.
possible for me. I've done it, you can do it too.
That's the key.
There's always a way to see the light.
Yeah, the light is at the end of the tunnel.
As
right?
shitty as your life may be, look at me, I came out of it, you can too. It's hope.
Absolutely.
The turning
That's
point
the
is all
turning
about
point.
hope. The turning point is hope.
Thank you. Turning point is about the hope. Okay. So if you keep those things, and the high point is just solidifying. It's like, well, there was hope and I did it, and now life is still good. It's not like I did it and then I fell into another shitty job. You know, it's like this is, you gotta solidify that now things are great because I did that, right? So if at any point you're feeling like what'll happen is your brain will take over and you go off on a tangent and you go long on one area. Just keep asking yourself, where am I? High point, low point, turning point, or am I finishing the high point? Don't think that because you have more time or because I'm still looking at you or the audience is looking at you, you gotta like keep going on your story. It's a thing that we do a lot of speakers, I think, that this kind of happens, you know, but we don't have to do that, right? I think a story is much more powerful if you leave it succinct. If you just say, this is what happened, and then I turned, and I got every book on happiness, I devoured it, it was amazing. And I started coaching on happiness. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I knew that I was helping people that were miserable getting happier. Help people who had quote unquote success and were not happy to finally be happy with it. And help people who weren't getting success, who wanted to, but kept being miserable around not having it. I help them to get happy so they can then achieve the success. Because those are my two types of people, I think. right? And it was just amazing. For 16 years at NBC, putting every show on television on the air, right? I'm putting on shows like Hannibal, but I'm focusing all my energy on helping people be happy. It was amazing. It was just, it became that dream job, but I knew there was more. So your turning point, that was the turning point 9 years in. Everyone follow that?
Yeah.
Right? This is not just for Ricky. You guys all get that, right? And the end of your turning point is a fast forward 16 years. And you said, and I finally have this whole time, I wanted to do this full time. There's no way I could walk away from such a great job. And I finally got the chance of a lifetime when they consolidated. And they offered me the severance package. I said, check, please. Thank you.
Right. And oh, by the way, it's this philosophy that helped me keep my sanity and have the attitude that I do right now, because I think a lot of people in that same situation would have felt like, oh my God, my life is over. Now what? Scarcity, all of that.
Absolutely.
Right.
And you realize there's no coincidences.
Right.
Right? Something got happened. And I feel like the ending point is the last sticking bit for you. So from the point of getting a severance check, you should have like 2 to 3 sentences to wrap it up. So let's go from the top for there. So I looked up, check please.
Check please. And does that, so then leading into what I'm doing now and.
Yeah, and you're just saying how great things are now because you did that.
Right. And so.
That's all you gotta say.
Yeah.
We don't even need many details on there,
Mhm.
but go ahead.
Now I just deliver, I walk the talk and I deliver what I talk about, which is, serving others, forgiveness, I talk about all the time, and gratitude. And to me, gratitude.
Chunk up, you're already teaching again.
Yeah.
Stop teaching.
Okay.
High point, all I want you to do is say something like this, check please. And ever since that moment, I've devoted all my time to speaking, to teaching, to running workshops,
Right.
to sharing with groups like this about how you can create happiness with or without success. And it's just, I'm so blessed to be able to do that,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Do not teach at the high
Right,
point.
Right.
Because
Okay.
then that's where you get wrapped, and all of a sudden you're on a whole other
Yeah,
tangent.
yeah.
You're gonna teach in a minute, you're gonna take a breath, and if you're being interviewed, I'll ask you the next question,
Mhm.
right? Because it makes an interview or a panel really awkward if you keep going into it.
Mhm.
If I ask you for your story, I wanna know your story.
Mhm.
I don't wanna know all the teaching yet, right?
Right.
If you're speaking on stage, now we feel like, okay, his story's drag, it's good, but it's draggy.
Right.
End your story, start the next point, and you can almost do it with one line, right?
Mhm.
So that was my story. And so now let's jump into the content, right?
Mhm.
I want to share with you 3 keys today that are going to totally improve your happiness with or without success and will allow you to create success even if it's possible,
Mhm.
right? Key number 1, your philosophy dictates your state. And then you teach about that. Key number 2, boom, right?
Mhm.
Okay, one more time. High point.
So I looked up, I said, thank you, check please. And today I'm just so blessed because I get to do this 24/7. I get to help people all day long. And I have such a passion in the morning when that alarm goes off. Well, to be honest, the alarm doesn't go off because I'm just up. I'm up, ready to go and ready to start helping people. And I'm just so blessed to be talking to groups like this and speaking on stage and coaching both individually and group. And it's awesome.
Awesome. Give Ricky a hand. That's high point, yeah, brother. That was good.
great.
Good. Does this help? Oh, does this help?
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. So I want all of you to have a story similar in a way to that. Okay, that was good. So that was the high point piece that was missing, right? And now we get it. Oh, wow, you are blessed. And I love the best part about that was, I don't even use an alarm. I'm up before it because I can't wait to get up and go every day because I get to do what I love. And every one of us is like, I want that. Right? I want that. Good?
Awesome.
Okay, cool. All right, let's have some lunch. All right, thank you for playing at home. Super, super good. We're gonna have some lunch. When we come back, Kasushi actually should be here any second, or Sasha, some of you know her. If you saw the Facebook post, we're gonna do a little mini, what do they call that?
Baby shower.
Baby shower. It's a baby shower. The thing with the games and with the cake. And
Oh, are we doing a game?
we're gonna do something. Yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna have some fun. Cake? Not the diaper game.
Okay.
What time should we be back?
So what time should we be back? It's 1 o'clock. We're gonna come back here. Let's be back here at 2:30. Obviously, let's go to lunch together if at all possible. Who wants to go to lunch where? If you're going on your own, go on your own. Awesome. Sounds good. So she's gonna be back. We're gonna have a little baby shower, have some fun with her. And then we're going to start masterminding around these topics. So you can work it all out. All right. If you're at home, take those three pieces and start crafting your talk together and make sure you know exactly what it is, okay?
And
If you have any questions, of course, text me, email me, you're a Pinnacle partner. All right, love you. Bye.
How are you feeling, Matt?
Feeling amazing.